Hello. There we go. Hi. Hi. How is everybody doing? I made a little whoopsie because I forgot what was going on. That's on me. That's all right. Hi. Hello. In case anyone here is new, all that fun stuff. I'm kind of cutting to the chase this time around because I don't really want to bother with, like... Oh, let me fix that while I'm doing this. I don't want to bother with, like, having stuff out of place while I'm working. I just kind of want to go. So let me find a good place for this. Maybe up here. Yeah. I'm gonna do something like this. That should be about good. Maybe like that. Yeah, I think that'll do. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have some videos going in the background just because it'll be some extra something to look at while I'm doing this, because it might be a little bit quiet for most of the stream because I'm tired as shit. But I need to do this work, and I need to make myself accountable for doing this work. Yeah. All that good stuff. Oh, okay. I'm still getting used to the YouTube, Twitch split streaming thing. It's interesting. It's very interesting. We'll see what comes of that. But yeah, once again, hello. I am Mr.Hardgrind, formerly virtual VTuber. I'm trying to think of a new thing to call myself because I realize I need to probably nix that part because it's not going to make sense to a lot of people unless they go through my channel. And by go through my channel, I mean my my YouTube specifically. But yeah. Ooh. Ow. 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 That hurt. All right, I need to be careful. I'm tired as shit. Holy fuck. All right. Anyways, I'm gonna get these started. Gonna hope that these play in the right order. They might not. They are not, but that's okay. What the hell? Why isn't it, there it goes. That was weird. Let me fix this. Make sure that the audio's going through. It is not going through. So I'm glad that I stopped to check all this out. Properties. This will be... Boom. Now let's try that again.
Today we're going to talk about building a superhero universe.
Yeah, there we go. Someone just knock?
Hey everybody, Steven here. There are a lot of YouTube videos out there with people talking about how to create a superhero and what makes a good superhero. And there are a lot of good videos out there about that.
Something like this.
I might even make one eventually, but
yeah,
I've not
excuse
seen
me.
a lot about.
There we go. I'm
the
satisfied with
universe
that.
in general, and that's what we're going to talk about here today.
All right. Anyways,
I'm
just gonna play videos that I find
creating
interesting
my
and
superhero
work.
universe through books, and it got me thinking how other creators
Drinking
do
some
it, other comic book
characters,
characters,
soda.
Other comic book companies,
Mm-mm-mm.
other creators are doing their universes, and I came up
All
with
right.
3 that I think seem to fit the bill here.
That's not what I wanted.
On how they
There we
do
go.
it.
Okay.
Now, the one thing you need to understand is this is not a how-to, you must do video. I'm not doing that. I'm not telling you you must do it this way or you cannot do this. I'm hoping this video does 2 things. 1, inspire. I hope that people will see this and you guys will get inspired to write. And I hope it motivates you to continue to write. If you need some motivation, hopefully this will give it to you. So let's talk about the 3 different ways I see superhero universes coming together. One is the I call it the little by little method. Marvel and DC, the big 2, as they're called. I'm going to speak in generalities today, so don't give me in comments, this came out before this one. We're speaking in generalities today. Marvel came out with one hero. They came out with another. And another. And then another.
Yeah.
More.
That's typically how that goes.
Eventually, you have a superhero universe. You have all these characters starting out in their own books with their own stories. And eventually, they start crossing over. And they start commingling. And eventually, after years and decades, you get a complete universe. You get a connected, unified universe. This is what you have with Marvel and DC. Although they've been going so long now, you not only have universes, you have multiverses and dark multiverses, and they're huge. Huge. So the only problem as a writer I would see about doing this, especially an independent writer or an indie creator, is it takes a very long time to try to do something like this. So while this is a method, it's probably not the best method. I'm not telling you what to do. If you want to try it, by all means, give it a shot.
No.
I think these next 2 methods are probably going to be the better ones.
There it is.
The next one is the jump right in universe. This is the one where a lot of independent comic creators.
It's a lot of
they'll put their book out, and
this video kind of sucks. Not gonna lie.
Built. They'll already have a built-in history.
We're gonna move on. It's kind of going nowhere.
Captain America, Steve.
There we go.
It's been a long road going from the campy initial decades of superhero adaptations to the global dominance of the MCU. Many people have forgotten just how goofy most of the initial attempts at translating superhero costumes to film actually were. Actually, just how goofy translating superheroes to film were, period. Just look at Reb Brown's Captain America costume.
True.
It's a far cry from Simon and Kirby's original idea, let alone what we got
A
in the
far
MCU,
cry?
even if some of the costumes do kind of always feel the same. It's a phenomenon that's talked about a lot on the internet lately, especially in short-form social media environments. The homogenization of Marvel's costumes. Well, there's a reason for that. But before we dive too deep, why do superheroes wear spandex in the first place? Well, the quick answer for that is Jules Leotard. If you're not familiar with Leotard, he was a circus performer from the 1800s. A brilliant one at that. Born in 1838 to a gymnastics instructor in Toulouse, France, he was initially planning on being a lawyer. He passed his exams and was all set to work in a legal firm when he just couldn't shake his passion for the circus. A true performer at heart, he had dreams of building an apparatus that would enable him to swing above crowds, soaring through the air, and he did just that. Jules Leotard not only invented the art of the trapeze, he also created what we refer to today as, well, the leotard. Starting in the late 1930s, characters like Superman, the Phantom popularized fighting crime while clad in these tight, sometimes strange-looking costumes. Most superhero costumes are a combination of leotards, flying uniform, and circus strongman outfits. They were theoretically meant to both display the muscles of the wearer and allow for ease of movement.
I see what's happening.
Show off. However, these costumes quickly evolved into visual metaphors. What does Wonder Woman stand
that's
for?
Weird.
Female empowerment and the ideas of her adopted homeland reflected in her gauntlets and her star-spangled attire. Batman, creature of the night, otherworldly vampire, unless he's punching the Joker off a 50-foot tall piano. We just don't talk about those stories as much. It's fine.
There's a setting happening.
A superhero's costume is a reflection of the ideas that they believe in, a theatrical display of rebelling against the status quo. So let's circle back around. When attempting to translate these costumes to the screen, in the early days of comic book adaptations, most productions opted for a one-to-one approach, literally clothing their heroes in literal spandex just like their supposed 4-color equivalent. This basically leads to 45 years of characters having
black
costumes
again
that feel
if I'm not focused on it, because that's gonna suck.
The narrative of Biff Bang Pow comics,
it does.
And that this is just for kids in one way or another. There's a larger-than-life nature to the illustrated page. It just doesn't function the same way in real life. Drawing Batman in a spandex suit there, it's understood that in that reality, he has armor underneath it, even though we can see his abs.
Okay. Well, that's not working out. That kind of sucks. I really wanted to present the visuals of this. I'm not sure why the screen is turning black like that. That's cool. That's fun. Let's see if we can figure that out while we're live here. Much as I really don't want to do it live. Oh well. These things happen. And I'm still figuring this stuff out. Since it's being a bit. No. It's YouTube videos, but I don't really want to watch those. It's kind of redundant in a way. Okay, I need a more recent version. This is bop. And I'm ignoring the AI because the AI sucks and I don't know how to opt out of it. Here we go. Ooh. That does not have an answer. That's wonderful. That's always good when the problem that you have is undocumented. Oh, wait. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, we're gonna do that really quick. So if we go in here, and if it'll let me actually type in there, Jesus Christ. So if I do this and then type this whole thing in. Here we go. We need to turn that off. Turn that off. Ah, okay. Then we relaunch. Cool.
Be Captain America, Steve.
Woo. All right, and then we turn it back on. Like so. We let it play.
It's been a long road going from the campy initial decades of superhero adaptations to the global dominance of the MCU. Many people have forgotten just how goofy most of the initial attempts at translating superhero costumes to film actually were. Actually, just how goofy translating superheroes to film were, period. Just look at Red
I think it's
Brown's Captain
working.
America costume.
I think it's working.
It's a far cry from Simon and Kirby's original idea, let alone what we got in the MCU, even if some of the costumes do kind of always feel the same. It's a phenomenon that's talked about a lot.
Yeah, I think it's working. Yep, it's working. Cool. Awesome.
The homogenization
now I don't have to worry about that.
Costumes. Well, there's a reason for that.
Cool.
In the first place. Well, the quick answer for that is...
Hi, Ira. I was trying to get the Chrome window to work, where it wouldn't shut off while I was still doing the stuff in here, so I could have some stuff going while talking to y'all, because I'm probably going to be kind of quiet, all things considered, tonight. So I'm going to be focusing on doing this stuff. How are you doing, by the way? Welcome in.
The leotard. Starting in the late 1930s,
hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a good night.
Popularized fighting crime while clad in these tight, sometimes strange-looking costumes. Most superhero costumes are a combination of leotards, flying uniform, and circus strongman outfits.
That worked.
They were theoretically meant to both display the muscles of the wearer and
doing good. That is good. Glad to hear it.
Show off. However, these costumes quickly evolved into visual metaphors. What does Wonder Woman stand for? Female empowerment and the ideas of her adopted homeland reflected in her gauntlets and her star-spangled attire. Batman, Creature of the Night, otherworldly vampire, unless he's punching the Joker off a 50-foot tall piano. We just don't talk about those stories as much. It's fine, but you get the idea. The superhero's costume is a reflection of the ideas that they believe in. A theatrical display of rebelling against.
Notice something on the
let's circle back around. When
left bottom of your screen. Oh yeah, that was.
A one-to-one approach.
Listen, I got bullied into that one. I'm ignoring it as much as I can.
This basically leads to 45 years of characters having costumes that feel off, not too realistic, and play the narrative of
think I see how I gotta do that.
Comics, and that this is just for kids
annoying, but
in
it could
one
be
way
worse.
or another. There's a larger-than-life nature to the illustrated page. It just doesn't function the same way in real life.
It is what it is.
Batman in a spandex suit.
As long as people are having fun, right?
That in that reality, he has armor underneath it, even though we can see his abs.
That is my job as the entertainer.
See how that works in one place, but
keep people entertained.
Then we get to March of 2002. everything changes.
All these
If you're
weird
familiar,
little
the Ultimates
secondary
was a
dots.
part of an imprint at Marvel where they restarted the books, making them contemporary and inviting
I see,
in new readers.
I see,
Didn't have
I
intimate
see.
knowledge of Spider-Man's backstory? No problem. Just pick up Ultimate Spider-Man #1, where the journey was jump-starting all over again. Now, it's hard to overstate the impact that Brian Hitch's character designs for the Ultimates had on both the comic book industry and the idea of
We're just
superhero
gonna
costumes
get rid
across
of
nearly
that.
every franchise. Hitch was the
And
first
do one of
artist to answer the question,
these.
what would superheroes look like in real life?
Interesting. This
His
is the
visual
first time I've had
solutions
one
for
of
this
these
reflect the
happen
tone of the
before.
books. Darker, more grounded,
Curious.
and more serious
Anyways,
nature. Gone was Iron Man's
we'll ignore
bulky
that.
refrigerated armor from the 60s, and
Whatever
here
that
was
was
a robot
about.
suit that looked like something straight out of popular science. An actual functional robot suit. Same with
Yeah,
Thor,
I'm good,
combined
I'm
massive
good. I
yellow
just,
boots, winged
saw-
helmets, and bright red
saw a
capes.
thing
Originally, the
somebody
jumpsuit and
posted,
boots were here
and
to stay. The
I-
aesthetic of the Ultimates was taking the
I'm
beloved
not really
Marvel
sure why,
characters, boiling
but
them
whatever.
down to their essentials,
Yeah,
and then
it's a
rebuilding them
video
using
about
athletic
superheroes
military
and their
equipment,
costumes and
tactical body
stuff.
armor, things that
Can you
people
hear
would
it
put on
okay?
their bodies in place of spandex and capes. And it set the comic book world on fire. The Ultimates was notable for many reasons, the most primary of which
Okay,
is probably
cool,
the
cool,
fact
cool,
that it
cool, cool,
perfected
cool.
the
That's
widescreen
what I
approach
needed to know.
comics, which ironically is what the Avengers movies would be mimicking.
In the meantime,
very
I'm just gonna
quickly.
keep on working.
Believe it or not, the Ultimates is
Oh.
the rough template for both the general approach of
Ooh.
the MCU and specifically Joss Whedon's
Thank you
film,
for the follow,
Avengers.
Ira.
This
I
gets right down to
appreciate
the
it.
visuals of the universe. The stylistic approach that Brian Hitch
Thank you,
brought
thank
to
you,
designing
thank you.
superhero costumes
Hope
on
you enjoy
page
your time
was
here.
grounded in leather over spandex, utilitarian looks, and a general feeling that they could be worn by a real person out in public, as opposed to this. It is hard to get modern America.
I mean,
to
in
take
fairness, I
full-on
only just
spandex
started.
seriously
How
on someone like
long
Captain
have I been
America.
streaming?
I get that.
Yeah, only
But
30
also
minutes.
that
I'm just
every
kind of
character
jumping right
works
into it
under
because
that overly
I
logical visual aesthetic.
was gonna
I wanna take a quick
stream
break here
on
to give a thank you to the
Thursday. I
sponsor
normally
of this video,
stream
Noom.
on
What I love about Noom is that it's different from the other
Tuesdays
health
and
fads you might have seen.
Wednesdays,
It's a
but
new way to
I
get
had
healthy,
work on
lose
Wednesday,
weight,
so I
that
couldn't
uses
do that.
psychology and habit change. Learns how your mind works. It learns the why behind the decisions you make. And at the
So
end
I
of
was
the
like,
day,
oh, okay, I'll just
learning
push it
and
to
not
Thursday.
dieting
And
is what
then
creates
Thursday came
lasting
around,
change.
and I had a
Doesn't
massive
necessarily
fucking
all about
headache,
weight, it's
so I
about being
couldn't
healthy.
stream Thursday
Noom's all
either.
about support. Get your
Go
own personal
figure.
goal specialist. These are real people trained in psychology, fitness,
That's
and
all right.
nutrition. They help with things
These
like
things
meal plans.
happen.
They make sure to work around your lifestyle. So if this all sounds cool to you, go to the link in the description for your online
it's
evaluation.
not-
It's quick,
'cause I'm
it's
using the
easy,
wrong tool now.
helps
Okay.
me out, helps the channel out, and it will help you create your
Sunday
own
today
custom
here.
plan.
Yep, almost Sunday
All right,
here.
back to the video. Siege's
Got a
general
few
approach to
hours.
The idea of superhero costume design will be fully embraced
Let's
by
get
the
in
man who
there.
will soon be put in charge of designing all
Still
of the
a
costumes
still
for
a
the Marvel
nice,
Cinematic
decent
Universe.
Saturday.
Look at
I
this guy
say
on
that.
your screen right now. See, Ryan here is currently the head of visual development at Marvel
Got a cool.
Studios.
See, I
Originally
appreciate
from
that.
Northeast
Thank
Ohio,
you.
he
My,
started video
I'm
games
glad
before eventually
you
transitioning into
find
film.
my
He's worked on the MCU films since Iron Man
haphazard
1.
appearance
It's his
cool.
digital paint, along with an army of fellow concept designers that have designed all of the costumes
There's some
and
reasons for
suits
that.
For the MCU.
Here and there, I got
Many of the Hitch tropes
some
that we
lore
talked
things,
about
as
and
many
reestablished
VTubers
are
do,
repeated in
but,
the MCU's approach to superhero costume
yeah,
designs.
I guess I should
Ribbed
give
or
the
structured
spiel,
ribcage
'cause,
elements and emphasis on paramilitary gear, straps,
you're
and
new
structured
here.
costume elements are pervasive
Hero
in
sees a
nearly
clown?
every
Oh,
on-screen
cool.
Marvel character.
I know some
Captain
people who
America,
are very
a little
into
agent of
clowns.
the US government, or
Very, very
Tony
much
Stark,
into clowns.
Iron Man, a robotic super soldier. Yeah, these design approaches make sense.
I can
for
shout
him.
one of them out,
However,
in
the
fact.
aesthetic of extra-governmental
He's a fun
paramilitary
dude. He used to be a
chic
trash
doesn't quite
can,
fit
but now he's a
everyone and is
clown.
way too big
He's
of
a
mouthful
tra-
to
he's
say
a-
over and over again in meetings. Well, we
He's a
won't
trash
spoil, I guess,
clown.
any of the other elements of the story that you might not be able to.
I never
figure out
really.
from the very
It's
blatant
weird when you
marketing
say it out
from the
loud and
film.
then you kind of think
Needless
about
to
it.
say,
Anyways,
Shang-Chi's a martial arts master. In the vein
let
of Bruce
me
Lee, so you'd
let me
think his
continue
MCU
this
costume,
shout out.
which thankfully
Is another
isn't his
VTuber.
comic book costume
He does
running
some
around
fun
in
stuff. He does some
pajamas
cool
with
streams. Hangs out with some
headband,
cool
something along the
people.
lines of,
His name
well,
is
Lee's iconic
Billy
Game of Death jumpsuit, right? It's meant to be a superhero
Smiles.
costume already.
And I think
Well, you'd be
that's-
wrong. They went
I
with
think
this.
that's right.
Structured
Let me-
Gore-Tex-looking
let me
leathery,
double check that
almost
really quick
athleisure
before
suit
I,
of armor, sort of.
push that
Interesting.
through.
The costume's common ancestry to Hitch is obviously
I'm bad at
apparent.
spelling,
Why is a
and I
martial
realize
arts
that a
master
lot of
who needs
people
to be
have,
able to
like,
move around
weird
freely wearing plastic
special
leather armor?
spellings
Same
to
thing we said
their
for Scarlet
usernames
Witch
and
in general.
whatnot,
Her
so I don't
costume
want to
in the
get it
comics
wrong
just
and send you to the
befuddled
wrong
the
place.
MCU design department so much that they didn't have her in her suit from the
But,
first
yeah,
decade.
lot
her being
of
a
cool
fixture of
people out
popular
here.
culture. Her initial visual look was more
I don't normally
mall
stream this
goth
late.
Hot Topic employee than fearsome chaos magic.
just 'cause I'm
leader.
usually-
When they did get her costume at the end of WandaVision, it's, well, plastic leather structured pseudo armor. Well, again, the question is why. Honestly, Wanda's joke costume from the Halloween episode is a much
You saw it?
stronger visual
I saw what?
obviously. obviously very flawed, but it's here. Imagine that crown on a costume that wasn't played for laughs. it could work. See, overall, the MCU has a myriad of accomplishments, which it would be futile attempting to list, at least here. However, one common criticism is that the films feel a bit uniform or cookie cutter. This goes back
Billy
to
smiles.
2 points. The use of
Yeah,
humor, which
okay,
erodes
thank you.
character individuality sometimes.
Mr.
That
Rogers,
works.
That suit did nothing for your ass.
That should.
That's America's ass.
That
And
should
the
do
visual
it.
sameness of the character design.
Yeah, that's the one. Thank you for pointing that out.
Character like Doctor Strange,
I
Scarlet Witch,
appreciate
or
the
Dormammu
assist.
all
Yeah,
share
because
a
the
common visual
XXL
language?
is
Sure.
the part that
there
I
an
always
issue
forget
that the
about.
paramilitary
But yeah,
grounded characters share a common
Trash
design
Clown
scheme?
VTuber,
No. The issue
very
is
cool
that
dude.
everything in the MCU is
Highly
filtered
recommend
through the
if you are a
same
clown fan. There's
precise
also,
and very narrow lens.
there's
Fire the
there's
same
quite a few
space-activating
clown
ribbing
VTubers
and
now that I think
patterning
about
on
it.
Spider-Man's costume on Captain America's costume. It's
Quite
also
a
on
few.
Shuri's costume. Every character's general visual look seems to be drawn on the same tapestry. And when you
Let me
start adding in
close
hero
this up
after
before I
hero,
cause a
universe
horrible
after
accident
universe,
like I
it
almost did last
becomes
stream.
A little, well, tedious.
Don't wanna do
Concept
that again.
designers At Marvel, the costume designers at Marvel are master craftsmen.
Also, don't wanna
Could they create inventive
cut
solutions for
myself.
these
That
issues?
would be bad,
Absolutely,
too.
But, it's not
But yeah,
always up to them,
they're
which is
a
why
cool
we're not
dude.
here to talk about what they've
But
done
yeah.
wrong. There are producers and directors and executives to consider on the simple fact that not everyone working on these
Hold on,
comic
let
book
me pause
characters
this
actually
video
likes-
really quick. Yeah, so let me do my little spiel. Hi, hello, I'm Mr.Hardgrind. Ugh, oh god, damn it! All right, calling myself out.
All right, that's it. Someone get this man some Toms.
Yeah. I'm fine. It's just I'm drinking soda. Shut up. Anyways, that was Poyomon. He's my little friend. He used to be bigger, and then the incident happened. So now he's small, but it's okay. He's doing all right. He's doing fine. Yeah, let me move myself. Hold on. Bam, there it is. Let me move onto the center of the screen. Hi. Hello. I am Mr.Hardgrind. I am a formerly virtual VTuber who had a horrifying accident and now look like this, even though I was a person before. Hi. Hello. I hope you're doing well. I'm a bit of a freak, as you can tell. And I do art. I'm a voice actor. That's fun. Eventually you'll be able to hear me and stuff. I guess technically you can already, but you know, a lot of stuff isn't quite out yet. Still in early production. Yada yada yada. I'm going to be in a video game. That'll be cool. Oh god, I feel another one coming on. Yeah, there it is. All right, adding it to the list.
I can't believe he's done it again.
Shut up.
Everyone quit. Point and laugh at the gassy door.
Yeah. Shut up. I can't help it. I don't know why. It's weird. I never burp this much when I'm on my own, but the second I start streaming, I just can't. I can't stop. I can't help it. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what it is about streaming that makes me gassy. Oh god damn it. Shakomon is the bot. That is my little friend. Poyomon used to be Shakomon, and he got caught up in the accident too, and so, as Digimon do, they don't quite die, they just turn back into eggs, assuming that they haven't been horribly consumed by someone else. So he just turned into an egg, and then he hatched again, and now we're good. Anyways,
I can't believe he's done it again.
Shut up!
Everyone quit.
Fuck
Point and laugh
you!
at the gassy dork.
No! Fuck you. Anyways. Yeah, he's all right. He's all right. He's doing okay. He'll get back. He'll get better. But yeah. So that's my spiel. That's my dealio. And now we can continue with the video.
Costumes, but I mean, come on.
I'm eventually gonna like
Everyone's still hoping for
Hey,
that Rock
Goro.
movie
Hello,
appearance
hello,
where
hello,
he
my
isn't
friend.
wearing a purple jacket.
How are
The
you
guy in the
doing?
mask and the mustache already.
Hope you're having a
Let's see
good
what
night.
happens.
Hope work
So,
wasn't too
Nostalgia
bad.
Guys, if you enjoyed this one, press that like button down below. It's a topic that really
I'm
interests me,
forcing
so I'm glad
myself
we
to
got
do
to
work
talk
because
about it.
I
As always, hit
didn't
subscribe,
earlier in the
hit
week.
So,
Haha.
episodes on your screen right now. You can check those out, and hopefully I will see you guys in the next video.
Exhausted, been asleep since I got home. Yeah, that's fair. Hopefully it wasn't too bad of a day. Wishing you the best, my friend. Let's get this. That ain't right. No, no. Oh, I held it in. Ha! Didn't get me that time. It'll come out later. There's no avoiding it. I know it. I'm just delaying the inevitable. Got off work almost an hour and a half late. Oh, boy. Yippee! You love to hear that. Jesus Christ, what happened? An hour and a half? Okay, let's zoom out really quick. Oh. Shit, dude. Well, that sucks. Yeah, that is no good. Well, I hope that it gets taken care of soon? Next time? I don't know. Hope you don't have to deal with it by yourself at the very least. Worked out all the stuff that goes out on the refrigerator wall. Okay, that's good at least. Because that'll be a major hitch if not handled, I'm sure. There's something... Aha, that's what it is. Okay. And then we do this. And then we go back to... No, I want that other line. That's the one. Do that. We do... Whoa, what? Oh, okay, I see. So we do that. We do, like, something like this. We bring this up. Kind of like that, I guess. Vector lines are weird. I don't want to deal with that. I want to simplify this. Less bullshit I have to deal with, the better. Had to get off the clock, so I shoved the bulk meats in the cooler to deal with tomorrow. Yeah, no, I feel that. That's valid. I probably would do the same if I were in your shoes. I completely feel that. Does this even have any depth to it? No? No, whatever. Just do that. Not yet. Not yet. Eventually, I will. I just haven't had the, haven't had a good excuse. You know what I mean? It looks fine. Gotta go? Alright, later, Era. Thanks for joining in. Appreciate you stopping by. I will get some rest eventually, don't you worry. You have a good night. Chat is disabled. What the hell? Oh, do I have to do that like every... Oh, that's so annoying. Okay. I see. Trying to figure out, like, get used to this dual stream thing. So I'm currently streaming too, both Twitch and YouTube. Woo! But I still don't understand a lot of the YouTube side of it, to be completely honest. So we're figuring that out. But oh well, we'll get there in time. Why did it not? What the fuck? Okay. Weird. Why did it...
Last time, we talked about the importance of names, specifically in the area of Power Rangers as compared to their Super Sentai counterparts. The naming styles and conventions present in this context say a lot about the understanding of the source material and the ability to put the appropriate themes and concepts into the appropriate spotlight. That being said, now we're going to take a hard pivot and continue exploring this topic in a different direction. Interestingly enough, the last video was actually brought about due to my thoughts on this topic, but towards a different yet familiar franchise, Kamen Rider. With regards to names and their importance in distinguishing characters and entire seasons, there isn't a whole lot of difference between itself and its sister franchise, Super Sentai, and its sister-in-law franchise, Power Rangers. While sharing a lot in common, Kamen Rider's naming style does have its own unique set of nuances. While Sentai characters, teams, and season names are done with the team uniformity in mind, the names of Kamen Rider lean more towards emphasizing their individualities. Even if writers act as a team more or less within a show, the very concept of Kamen Rider lends each writer to harbor their own individual characteristics and identities, calling for their own unique names. So, just like we asked in the last video, what goes into making a great Kamen Rider name? In what is essentially a part 2 from our original naming video, I want to take a moment to dive into what makes Kamen Rider names so distinctive, solidifying their places in the superhero time slot while also differentiating themselves as a franchise. So, without further ado, let's henshin and get to it. Structurally, Kamen Rider names operate similarly but still a bit differently from Super Sentai. As we last explored, Super Sentai has a pretty simple naming structure involving adjective, Sentai, team name. That in itself gives a lot of opportunity to add in some distinctive flair to make the team and season unique. Even if the adjective portion isn't as referred to in dialogue or just due to the name being shortened, this particular naming style feels very classic. Something about a preliminary description before the official name just adds the right amount of heroism. While this naming structure is simple, Kamen Riders is even more so. This franchise is literally built off the structure of Kamen Rider blank, and that's it. That's one word to follow up with, and that's a lot of pressure to put on that one word, because it in itself needs to carry enough flair and distinction to uphold the image of a character and, in the case of titular riders, an entire show. So how do we decide this magic word?
This is a mirror, isn't it?
Sentai, the word that ends up becoming the name needs to have strong thematic relevance while being striking,
you know what?
catchy,
There's a better
and
way to
easy
do this.
say. To figure out this word,
Easier way to do this, smarter way to do this.
The first way is to have the word
Work
be a
smarter, not
Japanese
harder,
word.
all that good
This
stuff.
shouldn't be alarming or groundbreaking. As a Japanese property, it is bound to include a lot of its mother tongue in its naming, hence the common of Kamen Rider. These names draw directly from the Japanese language and pretty blatantly express their concept and motif. One of the most obvious ones I can think of right off the bat is Kabuto, because he's based directly off the Kabuto beetle. Like I said, it's an easy way to go when producing a piece of Japanese media, and it's something that's understandably done with any piece of media with respect to its country of origin. The other way is for the word to be an English or Latin-derived word. Show of hands, who here has created an OC and, when naming them, immediately thought of a Japanese name because it sounded cool? Be honest. Well, I think that reasoning is pretty similar to why other languages are thrown into these names. Because they only have one word to set off a powerful impression for their writer, I think it makes sense for them to use words outside of their natural language. I think any culture can agree that using something
It's also
from
for
another language adds
marketing.
some instant
Don't forget the
flair,
marketing.
And English is and has been such a global language that it will be striking to pretty much everyone. Of course, to English speakers, some of these words may not seem as cool,
not
but I'm sure that to everyone
quite
whose first language is
accurate,
not English,
but
these
I
names are
mean,
very
sure.
distinctive and memorable. The last way is one I find pretty interesting and I think should probably be done more often: unique words. These words may be combinations of words derived from either English or Japanese, and I think that in itself is very impactful. It's similar to how Pokemon, in both languages, will come up with unique names that are portmanteaus of words from their respective languages. It allows for a name to be extremely creative and imaginative, which is what this franchise is all about. The world of Kamen Rider names is a vast one, and all names are more or less thrown into one of these buckets. I think each naming style has its own unique merits. While I like the distinctiveness of the unique names category, I like the simplicity of using a common word from either language as well. And of those common words, an English speaker like myself may find a Japanese name to be cooler, while vice versa, the Japanese audience may find an English name to be cooler. Or each language may appreciate a name in its own image for its ease of speech and understanding. Ultimately, it boils down to the very subjective impression of coolness, but also the mixed objectiveness and subjectiveness of impact and concept representation. In the last video, I went in and rated each Power Ranger season name based on a variety of factors, and while there's definitely enough Kamen Rider seasons for me to do the same, I think it would be a bit of a disservice. Like I mentioned earlier, writers within the same seasons possess
live with
names
that.
and concepts that may be vastly
Not
different
perfect,
from each other,
but I can
embodying
live
their
with
own
it.
uniqueness that may not always be reflected in their season name. Therefore, instead of doing a traditional tier list based on seasons, I want to take a look at all of the common writer names we've gotten and highlight the best ones in my opinion. I'll be looking at the titular writers for each season, but also the writers within each season that have strong and unique names in their own right. I'm going to be assessing these through a pretty similar lens as last time. We're looking at creativity, thematic relevance, and memorability.
Similar here.
So let's go ahead and kick things off with Common Writer Ryuki. Ryuki is an example of a Japanese
we're starting with
name for a writer,
Ryuki?
but it is also a sort of combination of words that make it unique. I'm pretty sure we're all aware that Ryu means dragon.
I should have expected this.
The key portion of Ryuki
He is
translates
a
to writer,
Power
but
Rangers
also
fan.
knight, hence the Western adapted title, Common Writer Dragon Knight. This name is pretty iconic. It's simple yet complex, and pretty effectively combines Ryuki's dragon and knight themes.
Fun fact,
into one
I
neatly wrapped
fucking
package.
hate Power
I've
Rangers
always
at this
liked
point.
Ryuki's name, and I wish more writers in this
The more I
season
learn
went
about
along
it,
with
the
this
more I
naming
hate it.
convention, because a lot of them end up just being single words, aside from like Oja. It's a solid name.
Having
for a
said
solid
that,
writer.
the
No
game
wonder
that they
it was only
announced looks
other
fun.
writer
It's
season to get an
just a
adaptation.
remake
Common Writer
of.
Legend.
They're doing the same thing
Alright,
that they did
we're
with the
getting into shiny
TMNT
territory.
game, where
The
they
goal of
remade
Legend was
the
not only to
arcade
give the
game
decade
for that.
tribute to a new
It's the
character,
same
but to
idea,
do so
which
in the
means
most
there's a good
dazzling
chance
and
they might remake
glamorous
the Sailor
way.
Moon one.
Everything
Now that I'm
about
thinking about
Legend is
this,
sparkling, and the name Legend serves its purpose so
that'll be
well.
interesting.
While he isn't necessarily a carbon copy of Decade in his ability to draw upon writer powers, he represents the legacy of writers while doing so in a new and flamboyant style. It's a simple word choice, but a strong one as well. It's a celebration of the history of Rider, decked out fashionably in gleaming gold. Legend is, simply put, legendary. Common Rider Spectre.
Boo.
At this point, it's no surprise that I'm a big fan of Spectre. Playing as almost the spiritual opposite of Ghost, Spectre solidifies his spot as a stellar secondary rider within this spooky context. I think the way we get into Spectre's
Don't tell
name
me you're a
is
Ghost
pretty
fan.
cool.
Don't
With our
tell me
main
you're a
writer
Ghost
being
fan.
named Ghost,
Don't tell me you're a
that theme
Ghost
and
fan. That
concept
is the
very well
that is
known.
the
And what's
fastest
a cooler
way
word
to
for
lose
Ghost?
respect
You
from
got
it from me.
Spectre. Spectre comes in and possesses a name with almost the same meaning, but with so much more dark intensity. I think that intensity of Spectre lends well to his character and to another similarly themed writer joining the fray. It's such a cool name that emphasizes Spectre as an edgy, dark, and chilling writer. Common Writer Den-O. To me, Den-O has always been a very fun and memorable name. Densha, meaning train, is a pretty core part of the series concept. From the way Den-O's armor
gonna leave
materializes
it.
onto
I'm
him
gonna
to
leave
the
it
actual
alone.
Den liner train that the characters ride,
not my video.
trains are very integral to this
He's having a
series.
good time.
The other meaning the Den could have is part of the Japanese word for legend, densetsu. While not being of the same kanji, sound-wise, it does make sense. Since the Imagine are all based on legendary characters from Japanese
Why are we
folklore,
extrapolating
this
on
adds
this? Wait
even
a
more
minute.
meaning to the
We
name.
know what the
And
name
while I
comes
think
from.
The O or
What?
king part is
Huh?
pretty simple, I had always thought it referred to
What?
Oni, as
No.
Momotaro's
No,
always
no, no,
seemed
no, no,
very
no, no,
Oni-like
no,
to
no,
me.
no, 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 no,
Nevertheless, Den-O
No,
is a
no,
very
no, no,
playful
no, no,
combination of
no,
the
no,
show's
no,
core
no,
themes
no,
and
no.
concepts, and it's done in a very effective way.
Now we're moving on.
When
I'm
I
getting
initially started
madder
my
as the
quest
video
to
goes
cover
on.
all the PlayStation 2 action games out there, in my first review I did for Gungrave, I mentioned how Red
Anyways.
Entertainment was a studio that has made a bunch of cool games I
Some
eventually
good
wanted
shit.
to cover, one of those being Blood Will Tell. After playing it to near 100% completion,
Haven't heard
this
about
game
Blood
has
Will
only
Tell
further
in
cemented
so long.
Red as one of my favorite and underrated studios of the era, making such unique and ambitious games with experimental ideas and cool presentation. It only makes me even sadder that we never got their Trigun game because it probably would have been sweet. In my
Yeah.
mind, they were one of the premier studios to get for adapting an anime or a manga during the PlayStation 2 era. Yes, I'm aware that the Gungrave game came first before the anime, but they capture the aesthetics and overall game feel that you would want from an adaptation, like Yuke's Berserk game we've already covered. Sadly, we don't really get games like this, Garo, Berserk, and Samurai Champloo Sidetracked anymore, and I would rather shit out half-baked copy and paste arena fighters that are missing basic features and are already completely abandoned after being out for a week. For the
True!
unaware, Blood Will Tell is an adaptation of Osamu Tezuka's Dororo. I'm not sure why it's called Blood Will Tell in America, since in Japan they just kept the same name as the manga, but I assume Paul Marketing thought this was too Japanese for our feeble burger brains to not get confused by. I had actually read a bit of the manga before playing this game, since I loved watching Astro Boy with my dad growing up and wanted to see Tezuka's other works, so it was cool to see how they went adapting designs and panels into 3D. I really appreciate that while they went for very very realistic proportions and aesthetics for the human characters, the demons did not lose their original flair. Part of the amazing presentation of this game is the illustrations by Blade of the Immortal author Hiroaki Samura. Things like the Wikipedia only list them as drawing the much better Japanese cover of this game, but a lot of the in-game stills shown in the opening hours look really similar to their art style. Some of the art might have been done by other artists at Red Entertainment, but regardless of who did what, it all looks incredible. The color and texture work are so vivid and vibrant. Even the opening cutscene from when you boot up the game that the inferior Western cover is a still image of looks fantastic even by today's standards. I can only imagine how this blew people away back in 2004. I also loved the cinematography for the in-game cutscenes, specifically how the demons moved within them. They have such a fun kinetic movement to them, similar to some of the stuff found in Garo. It feels purposefully reminiscent of Japanese theater with characters moving as if they were actors on wires. But the cutscenes and art aren't the only things that I love about this game's presentation. There are moments in gameplay like when you fight behind shoji door panels and all you can see is the silhouettes of your character and the enemies.
Neat.
The most impressive stuff is how they
really
adapt
cool
the story of Dororo.
I think Tenchu did something like that.
As always with these videos,
a couple of times.
Spoilers, but if you want to find out what these things are for yourself, skip to this part of the video and play the game for yourself first. I think this game hosts a very unique experience that I haven't encountered anywhere else, and I would want people to see it for themselves first, going in completely blind. So the story of Dororo is about a young boy named Hyakimaru, who as a child was offered to the demons by his father for power. These demons would go and steal 48 body parts from baby Hyaki, and after his father saw what happened to his son, he was filled with regret for his actions. He then took his son and sent him down a river where he would eventually be found by a man named Jukai. Jukai was a physician who would then make a new body for the now deformed and abandoned Hyakimaru, allowing him to lead a relatively normal life. That was until demons started showing up around them and eventually told of his origins, being instructed to kill the 48 demons who stole his body or kill the human of their creation using his parts, thus beginning our journey of the 48 boss fight gauntlet.
Oh. Alright. Interesting. Okay.
The child has survived.
Because
That's
of the mystical
pretty cheesy,
prosthetics
but alright.
given to Hyakimaru, gameplay goes through many changes as you kill more and more demons
Getting
and
distracted.
reclaim certain parts of your body. There are even pretty elaborate cutscenes for major organ regains. While not as graphic, they do remind me of the transformation scenes from the previously covered Altered Beast. Because Hyakimaru doesn't have eyes, using his third eye to see, the first 30 minutes or so of the game are in black and white until you kill the boss to reclaim your left eye. I think it's really funny that the game has to open with a prompt that says, "No, there is nothing wrong with your TV, the game is supposed to be in black and white." This probably means that people were confused by this in focus testing if they did any of that, or at the very least feared people would be when they eventually played the game on release. Because Hyaki doesn't have any vocal cords and communicates telepathically until you beat the tutorial boss, his voice has this filter put on it for the first few lines of dialogue and
That's
combat
actually kind of
parts.
cool.
I will take back all the 48 body parts the fiend stole from me.
Initially, I thought this was just a result of a shitty English dub, like the audio quality issues of Fatal Frame 3, where everyone sounded like they were speaking out of the finest soup can the recording team could find. When I realized this was an intentional thing, it got me really excited to see what else they could have up their sleeves for this game. On the
Yeah, the
topic
fact
of
that
the
that's
dub,
intentional
it's
is
overall
really
good,
smart.
especially
That's
for
like
the time. There
very
are
big brain
some
play.
goofy line deliveries, like when Hyaki gets his voice back.
I got my voice back.
Okay. Me too, man. Me too.
But things like the narrations sound fantastic.
The 48 fiends have each taken a part of your body, young Hyakimaru. You must slay these fiends and retrieve what is rightfully yours.
It isn't until Hyakimaru reclaims his central nervous system does the game give you controller vibration. Yeah, the guy has no sense of touch. So how do we convey this to the player? We take away the one thing that interacts with the player in the physical world. It's such a creative approach to storytelling that only a game can accomplish.
Big brain.
This didn't even cross my mind until I got it back and felt the controller shake for the first time. It took me by surprise the same way experiencing the sense of touch for the first time must have felt for Hyakimaru. You can thankfully turn it off if you want in the settings because controller vibrations suck 97% of the times in games, but I really cannot gush enough about how cool and creative this idea is. Whoever thought of this needs to be working with Kojima because who knows what those two could be cooking up if they were locked in a room together.
That would actually be very scary. I don't think we should do that. No.
To one of the most unique experiences I've had with an action game, there are sadly others that are actively bringing the gameplay down for large parts of this game. It isn't until you get one of your legs back at the end of Chapter 1 do you unlock the ability to sprint. Now, that may not sound that long, and maybe my playtime was longer than the average player because I'm going over all of the levels with a fine-tooth comb trying to find any secret that I can, but I reached the end of Chapter 1 3.5 hours into my playthrough. Part of this is because of the level design of this game, which pre-getting sprint is definitely adding time compared to after having it. The levels of Blood Will Tell are very similar to the Berserk PS2 game's levels. Overly large wastelands that you have to trek through while fighting never-ending hordes of demons. Chapter 1 feels like one of the largest levels of this game, with only the final chapter feeling more absurdly big. So before you finish this chapter, you just have to slowly walk your way around from one end to the other. And the story is certainly going to be making you get your steps in for the day. Once you do get the sprint, traversal does become less daunting, especially when you have to backtrack, but at the end of the day, these maps do not need to be this big. The parallels and comparisons to the Berserk PS2 game don't stop with the unnecessary size of the levels, but also with how I found myself just running past enemy encounters after a while, because if I stopped to fight every single little enemy that spawned in, I felt like I was never making progress. The game really should have implemented a begin from this point style replaying of levels. There are so many save points that if you could just start from one of them or at least warp to them, it would cut down so much on pointless backtracking, instead of like it is now where you have to start from the very beginning of each chapter. So if you have to get to something at the very end of the map, then you have to go possibly miles. For the longest time before I went back and tested it on a fresh save, I also believed that the dodge was tied to getting the left leg too. This is not the case. You have it from the start, it's just that the game does not tell you about its existence at all. You have to be in strafe mode while holding down L1 and pressing X while pushing the left analog stick in any direction. Why the game does not mention this in its tutorial or menus is beyond me and actively changes my perception of the game. It turns out that they do mention this in the manual for this game, but seeing as it has now become a $400 game for some reason, so unless you hunt down the PDF on the Internet Archive, you aren't going to know this going into it without prior information of its existence. Originally, I was going to complain about how this hurts boss fights because insane. Before you would have the dodge, you could only run around them, making the fights feel reminiscent of the Berserk Musou game, rubbing your stick on the leg of a boss until they eventually fall over while not reacting to you at all beforehand. There is also no block or parry to my knowledge, so this also adds to the disconnect when fighting a lot of bosses. It also hurts the scripted segments where you are fighting humans and must perform non-lethal combat. This involves strafing your opponents and hitting them on the back with the dull end of your sword so you can deal massive damage and knock them out. The lack of a block or a parry when you can be fighting 20 dudes at the same time easily results in you getting stun locked to death. The camera for this game is the same as a few of the games we've covered previously, like Gungrave Overdose, where you move the camera with the right stick for slow, awkward panning before it snaps right back into place behind the player character when you let go. Like with Altered Beast, you're mainly going to be recentering the camera by tapping L1. Because of this camera's implementation, it makes the platforming in this game be really annoying. Thankfully, these segments are few and far between, but I always felt that I never had good depth perception when having to do some of these jumps. The last complaint that I have before I want to start talking about the combat of this game is some of its lack of clarity at times. So
this is coming along pretty well.
The main objective is to
all things considered. I haven't gotten to the major details and all that, but
48 boss fights.
Still pretty happy with how this has turned out so far.
Obviously, you should do this because otherwise you don't get the true ending and aren't at your strongest, but the only mandatory ones that you must fight are the bosses on the path of the main story. It's usually 2 or 3 for each of the 7 main chapters. numbers. The rest are all optional, with a bunch only encountered on replaying levels and backtracking. Thankfully, replaying levels just dumps you into the sandbox of said chapter and does not make you redo any story objectives. The issues start when it feels like a total crapshoot to get some of these demons to spawn. Some are pretty obvious, like you see this ledge that you can jump from with a pressure plate that you could press down like the one you did earlier. When you see that it does not react to you standing on it normally, you can put 2 and 2 together. But then there are others like the Forest of Chapter 6 where you have to destroy these specific statues. This is 100% where Itsuno got the idea for that shitty Forest of Illusion or whatever the hell it was called in DMC4. It's the same maze that requires a guide for the first time you go through because I'm too stupid and every room looks the exact same. There are also ones that only spawn in previous levels after you get to a certain point in the story, either because you have a new upgrade like getting the cannon's damage increase so you can break the boulders blocking the combat arenas in chapter 1 and 2, or because a story beat has happened. Without looking up a guide to tell you, hey, come back here after beating chapter 6, you can easily think that you are missing something about the level that is preventing you from getting in there. The main menu is just saying that there is X number of demons remaining in the level, so this all could have been avoided if it just had any sort of signposting to come back later that is more clear, because it kinda has it with certain lines, but it can easily be interpreted as, oh, there must be something in the level that I could find to do this. The other part that adds to the confusion for me was that Dororo has this mode where you can send them for scouting, and they'll be able to sniff out demons and hidden stuff. Every time I'd replay the first level to find the final demon in it, I would get this line from Dororo.
Something's not right.
While going up these giant steps. I think they're referring to this hidden part you could jump up to, but I found that in my first time through the level, so I feel like it shouldn't have kept playing over and over again even when I jumped to it. This caused me to think I am missing something and just had to rub my character against every wall while mashing the interaction button or swinging my sword against every wall in the off chance that there is an illusionary wall or some sort of hidden path. The combat manages to hit a nice sweet spot on both the mechanical depth and the is it just fun to play spectrums. No, it's not as deep as anything out of Capcom from this era, but it also is not completely mindless as Space Sheriff Spirits or 7 Samurai 20XX. It's slightly above things like the Sword of Etheria and Nano Breaker with a decent amount of combos and decent yet simple feeling air combat. Yakimaru has 2 stances that you can swap between at any time by hitting L2. You have the single long katana which starts out rather slow and lacking at first, but as you play more of the game and it levels up from using it along with finding any of the hidden swords scattered throughout the levels that have different properties, this stance actually becomes the more fun of the two. It becomes much more useful later in the game too because of its longer range, which makes dealing with these spear enemies much easier. The second stance is the one that sets this game apart style-wise from a lot of the others on the market at the time. Hyaki shoots off both of his prosthetic arms to reveal swords underneath them, giving you a fast but short-range style of combat. Combos with this stance look so cool as you start doing 360 spins in the air and mid-air somersaults that look like he was taking notes from Sonic's Spin Dash. This stance also gives you a gun, which is very useful versus some of the flying enemies or enemies with annoying hitboxes like the fire wheels. I don't know what it is about this enemy archetype, but they are so frustrating to fight in every game they are present in.
You love fire wheels. We all love fire wheels.
What's wrong with fire wheels? Range. It just feels like bullshit trying to fight them. Your other ranged projectile is your leg cannon, which I mentioned earlier. This functions like Guts' arm cannon, where it's a great way to deal big damage at a distance or clear out bundles of enemies that would otherwise stun lock you if you tried to face them head on. Unlike Guts' arm cannon, this has an ammo count rather than being on a meter. When the meter and your health bar is full and glowing, you can hit square and triangle at the same time to do a super move. You start out with this massive spinning AoE attack that gives you invincibility frames, which is good for dealing huge damage to bosses while dodging some of their bullshit attacks and grapples, but also with dealing with large hordes of enemies. Hidden throughout the game are these scrolls you can pick up which give you other super moves, so definitely make sure to break environmental objects whenever you see them, because you never know which one is going to be hiding an incredibly strong game-changing super
What game
move.
is that?
The last thing in your
I think it's
the
they said it was the
sword explodes with a shimmer and stabs an enemy, initiating a QTE sequence.
Game.
The more prompts you successfully
but
do
it
with the time
was
limit and
the
hit
English
triangle again
title
will
for
give
it
you
was
both
Blood
the
Will
super
Tell.
stylish looking execution screen, along with giving you much
from
needed
2004
rewards like
apparently
health items, ammo, and these green little orbs, which if you
Blood Will
collect
Tell.
100 of will give you a 1-up. If you mess this up at any point, the sequence will end and you will
get no rewards. But there is nothing stopping you from just doing it again as long as the enemy didn't die and you don't get hit by any of the other enemies
apparently made by
around
the
you.
same team that did the PS2 Berserk
to be able
games.
to competently do this to get this above 16
as well
button
as
presses successfully. It's simply too hard
couple
for
Kamen
me,
Rider
and
games
boy,
from
is
that
going
era,
to come and
allegedly.
bite me in the ass later. As I mentioned earlier, there are segments in this game where you get to play as Dororo. Think of these as the Clank segments from Ratchet & Clank 1 and 2. Most of these remind me of the jail sequence from 2 because like Clank, Dororo is sneaking through tight areas that Yakimaru would otherwise be unable to get through. Their combat is better than most of these type of playable buddy character segments. Dororo's uppercut is cleaner than some Street Fighter characters. Though like I already complained about with the Firewheel enemies, your range is lacking for some enemy teams, feeling bullshit to fight and not designed for Dororo at all. You do have the ability to throw items, but most of these either suck or should be saved for scripted sequences. The only thing that you should know if you plan to play this game after watching this video is that during the Dororo segment in the prison, make sure to reload the save if you do not open one of the doors with the sword behind it. It is the only time you are able to acquire this sword. If you try to return back to this area later, you simply cannot get it. It is one of the few, if the only one that I'm aware of, that is a timed event in this game. This special sword is one of the two that I feel like is mandatory if you want to fight the true final boss and not have a hard time. If you end up missing this one, it sucks, but it's not the end of the world because there's always the second one you can get, which we'll bring up later. The reason I say this is because the true final boss can be a real ball buster. I knew going into this playthrough to expect the worst because when I was making the backlog list of all the games I plan to cover for this series, so viewers can play along, the top review for this game at the time mentioned how this was one of the worst bosses in the genre, and it certainly has all of the qualities to be agonizing like the Altered Beast final boss, since they are both multi-phase gauntlets with no checkpoints, absurd damage, and the worst camera in the game, but there are a few things you can do to mitigate potential headaches. I was stuck on this boss fight for a while and was only really able to beat it because I consulted this GameFAQs guide and watched this one boss rush video on YouTube to see how people were actually combating this thing. Before going into this boss fight, I think it's imperative to make sure that you have as many 1-ups and cannon ammo as you can get before going into this fight because you will likely need them simply because there is a lot of unavoidable damage and the camera isn't the best during this fight. Those blue projectiles that the boss shoots at you in the first phase, if broken before they hit you, will drop cannon ammo. The stone pillars in the area can be broken and contain healing items, but the boss's large swings often break them and cause the items to time out and despawn before you ever need them, or even realize this happens, since it's off screen and the boss camera mode keeps your view centered on the beast. During the second phase, go to the right and try to be parallel with the fingertip of the top right arm. This was roughly the sweet spot where I was able to consistently be able to swat the sweeping arm back without taking any damage. It's not easy and it's going to take some time to get the timing down, so do some trial and error in this segment of the arena and hope for the best. You are probably going to want to turn off the boss camera during parts of the third segment where it is just shooting this beam forward so you can get a better path towards the tail, and make sure to use the super move right before it grabs you, or else it will throw you into that beam for guaranteed damage. For this segment, it is probably best to switch to a sword, which might do less damage than your best sword, but builds super meter much faster. That way you can get multiple supers off on a single attempt on the beast's back. The final segment is easily the worst one and almost made it so I could not beat this game. This phase starts by the boss flying from outside of the arena directly at you, and you must do the triangle charge stab correctly and then do a combo in a rhythm where you aren't too slow but aren't too fast, since each hit pushes the boss's head back, meaning that you can miss if you go too fast. It's very frustrating and difficult to time both parts of this.
That is kind of insane.
Terrible depth perception with the forced camera from the boss camera mode, which you cannot turn off here for some reason. The only instance of this in the entire game, by the way. Once you successfully do this, its heart pops out, which is holding Dororo hostage. You then must do the QTE attack you've been doing all game for a super cool, thematically pleasing 48 slashes, representing the 48 demons you have killed. Now you may remember what I said earlier, that I am terrible at this and struggle to get above 16 successful hits. To kill the final boss, you must do a 48 button QTE sequence with zero mistakes and no assistance. I simply could not do this normally, and it is why I said to not miss the Sword of the Twin Clouds when playing as Dororo in the prison. I sadly did, because I did not consult a guide until I was stuck on the true final boss and had no way to get it. I don't know what this sword does, but I assume it might skip the QTE based on the item description included in said guide. Thankfully, the second sword is just sitting in the final boss room of the previous previous chapter before unlocking the true ending. This does mean you have to run through the largest map in the game, which can take easily at least 15 to 20 minutes without even fighting any in every enemy you encounter.
Damn.
The blade you get here, the Sword of the Eighth Cloud, is the only reason I was able to beat this boss, because not only does it slow the QTE down, which I still managed to screw up somehow, but it saves your place in the QTE, so if you redo the Bull Rush segment without dying, you can just pick up where you left off, which is what I did. I got up to 21 slashes the first time and then got the remaining slashes the second time to finally beat the game after struggling on this boss for hours. I'd say that Altered Beast, Shinobi, and Nano Breaker still have more annoying enemies based on what we've covered so far, but without the easy mode sword and figuring out how to abuse some of the jank of this game, it would be right up there with those three. Once you beat the game, you unlock Dorodo Mode, which is a time trial segment where you can play through repurposed main story levels trying to get collectibles before the timer runs out. I did not find it all that enjoyable, but it's cool that it's there to begin with, and it does allow you to unlock some really nice concept art.
It's conceptually fun.
Blood Will Tell is easily one of the best PS2 action games we've covered so far. It's one of the few that ends with me not wanting to snap the disc in half and never touching it again. It could have easily gotten to that point if there weren't the buffers for the annoying final boss, but its combat is fun and addictive, and the presentation is some of the coolest on the console. It's a shame that this game is now going for like 400 plus USD for some reason, despite the fact that people have said, yeah, I picked that shit up in a bargain bin for $5 years ago. I'd love to add it to my collection and even saw it once recently out in the wild, but unless I start making Mr. Beast levels of money instead of barely covering my rent for some months, I don't think I could ever justify that purchase. There's no game out there that's worth this much money. I'd love to see a re-release for this game, and highly recommend everyone to go out and play it for yourself on an emulator or a modded PlayStation 2.
How I even word that?
This is one that you do not want to miss out on. If you've made it this far into the video,
that is way too much. Just simply way too expensive.
If you really like the video, please leave a like and comment and pass the video
crazy
around. If you really like
crazy
these videos
prices.
on the channel, maybe consider becoming a patron on Patreon. It is the best way to support me directly, with multiple tiers, including a $3 voting tier, allowing patrons to pick when is the next upcoming multi-game review, which right now the vote is between Jak and Daxter and Metroid Prime. The poll actually finished before the video was done, and both series is tied, so I decided that I'll probably just do both. I haven't decided which order I'm going to do them in. I might do Metroid Prime first, since I have Metroid Prime 1 almost finished, but maybe I'll do the Jak games because those are shorter. I also have a $7 tier that allows you to view rough cuts of upcoming videos. Some of those currently include my eventual Drakengard retrospective. I'm now going to shout out all of my $5 and up patrons who really help support the channel. Neutral Guy, Speedo Weedo Wagon, Metal Cactus, Andy F, Bully, Applejuice426,
Those
Densha,
are
Turbo Chicken, Scary Dinosaurs, Barely, Elliot Morton,
certainly
Fish
names.
Pump, Jordan Bennett, Kevin Velasquez, Kohai Carmen, Lotto, Medi Not the Bad Guy, MGS Duh, Quanner, Quartz, Samuel Egan, Sayin Heggy, Slimph Tingle, Friday Fragmaster, Rovit, Ben Johnson,
Slimph Tingle,
Cursed Void, Ek Frazo, Filthy Fingers 69,
if you're open to it, I have a funny video for you.
Jacob Hamilton, Lazy Titan, Leon, Nicholas Pedinato, Peter
maybe, yeah.
Sean,
shoot,
Sir Newton,
what you got?
And Michael. Thanks so much, guys. If you're a card game player of any kind, I have a TCG player affiliate link in the description
send it to me. Send it to me on Discord.
Using my link
because I know you have me on there.
I also have a NordVPN affiliate link, so any plans that you get using my link will also help support the channel.
Now,
as for what's coming out next, I think I'm going to mainly focus on shorter
throw
videos.
it on
I don't
up.
know, I think something's just
because I don't remember if I have the link
focus and sit down and work on a long
protection
video without
thing.
feeling like
I think
I'm
I
going
do.
to die and have some sort of mental breakdown,
in here.
which is why the Drakengard retrospective isn't done. There has been a bunch of games that have come come out recently.
You call it Drakengard? Wait a minute, hold up.
Some short videos,
Oh,
or maybe I'll do another backlog monologue.
Hold on. What'd you just say?
If you're a card game player of any kind, I have a TCG Player affiliate link in the description below. All purchases you make using my link will give me a small kickback. I also have a NordVPN affiliate link, so any plans that you get using my link will also help support the channel. As for what's coming out next, I think I'm going to mainly focus on shorter videos. I don't know, I think something's just broken inside of me. I haven't been able to focus and sit down and work on a long video without feeling like I'm going to die and have some sort of mental breakdown, which is why the Drakengard retrospective.
He called it Drakengard. Okay. All right. Oh, there it is. The new... Oh. Okay. Yeah, Drakengard. Yeah. Ugh. Disgusting. What the fuck? Nintendo? What? Huh? Uh-huh.
Excuse me, sir or madam.
Uh-huh.
But hooray!
Hooray!
It's time for the new Tetris. Because I haven't seen any other moving puzzle games. So it's time for a new one. And I'm working on it and refining it along. But I wanted to show it to you now.
Yeah.
So you could get ready.
Okay.
If you want to add it to your game.
Yeah.
Disc making.
Yeah.
Stores.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so when the two spoons fall across the empty part
spoons
into the wind stream, they could split up sideways. When that happens, I could give it a name. Like I could call it a winner. A victory spoons maneuvers. And then see the book would fall upwards because of the wind stream getting deflected. So now this is where the fun really begins.
Okay.
Okay. When you have 4 Earth-friendly light bulbs in a row without the tissues adjacent to the other electrical thing, which I'm just using tea bags for right now, you get to hit the Goofy Boots button on your controller.
The what?
Okay, so we'll need to make special controllers that have a Goofy Boots button.
Okay.
For this game. So
what the fuck was that?
If it's the Goofy Boots time.
Okay.
So the game goes into Goofy Boots mode.
Goofy Boots time. Oh, I got Goofy
you hear
Boots.
My voice saying Goofy Boots.
Goofy Boots.
And then they appear on the screen.
Yeah.
And then you just you keep playing normally for a while.
Okay.
Then if you hit the other Goofy Boots button, the other one was to prepare them, and this one's to start them.
What is that?
They start walking into the shapes.
Okay.
They help you.
Yeah.
See, they help you win the slow part of the game that comes up later. All
right, man.
Then you have to choose what shapes should be put into the box that you built with the other
box
shapes. And kids will really be happy at this part because they'll say, "Yay! It's the Goofy Boots."
Okay.
And their parents will be happy because their kids are being helped to win in a proper way.
Okay.
Within the rules.
Yeah.
And I can even imagine guys who like sports games, like baseball games. They would slap each other on the back and go,
"Why?
You got the Goofy Boots. Good for you."
Good for you.
The bonus round ends if you have the boots right up against here. See?
Uh-huh.
But you could start the bonus round again. Because I'm going to ask the player with a little pop-up box if he wants to start playing the bonus round some more. Or if he just needs to take a break.
Oh, okay, so, man.
There will be a little mascot, too. For the thing called Ring-a-Ding-Ding. Who keeps standing in front of pieces.
What?
So it makes you...
Bro, what are we doing?
It makes you feel a little weird about touching them.
What?
So...
What? No. I want to feel weird about touching something in the game.
See, that's fun.
No.
And then your friend can grab the other controller and say, now, I'm Goofy.
What the hell is that?
What he does is, he puts fruits.
Why is some music on again?
There it goes. Some things into the Goofy Boots areas.
Okay, so there's a Goofy Boots area?
Haven't been to yet. Except for Fast You.
What?
Which can get anywhere really fast.
What?
But if you're not there in time... Oh, wait, no. Unless you were nearer then, if you were nearer to it than you were before the bonus stage, then what you do is... See, that determines...
Why is the music on?
How much you get to put into the red screen, which you could scroll over to.
There's a red...
Later.
How does this work? What? What the fuck are you on about? What the hell was any of that? Oh, okay. Yeah, man. You got the Goofy Boots. Good for you. I feel my brain leaking. What the hell was any? How did you even find that? Where did you find that video? How did you find that? Actually, you know what? I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Slaps your back. You got the Goofy Boots. Good for you. Yeah, like what? Okay. I guess, man. I'm going back in here. It was shown to you in a dream. You gotta stop following your dreams, my guy. What the hell is happening in there? What is going on up there? What horrible demon is whispering these dark secrets into your mind while you sleep? By dream, I mean Discord the other night. Oh. Well. That also do it. That explain it. All right. It's just gonna turn into a long chain of, all right, how did you fucking find this? All right, how did you fucking find this? All right, how the hell did you get here? It's just never gonna end. I got the Goofy Boots. I'm moving on. I feel like I lost brain cells. I feel like my IQ dropped significantly watching that. What the hell?
When it comes to side content for the Kamen Rider franchise,
fuck,
there are a number of ways that this is achieved.
I don't know if I'm gonna actually recover from that. What the hell?
Hyper Battle DVDs, novels, video games, and more.
Did he just say Hyper Battle DVDs? I know he tried to say Hyper Battle DVDs, but I don't think that's what actually came out of his mouth.
Tokusatsu Fan Club streaming service, or TTFC for short. Since 2016, TTFC has produced a number of specials for both Kamen Rider and Super Sentai. These have gained a reputation of being
2D8
some of the most
psychic damage.
nonsensical,
It did more than 2D8. That's for fucking sure.
That you could probably ever find. The first one of these to be released was the Kamen Rider Brave special during X-Aid. This saw Brave gain a new level 4 form and fight against Kamen Rider Oja from the 2002 series Kamen Rider Ryuki, who was revived by a recurring franchise villain faction known as Foundation X from 2009's Kamen Rider Double. At the end of this special, there was also a hologram projection of King Dark from 1974's Kamen Rider X. Why?
Okay.
There can't be an answer, as TTFC doesn't care.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay.
But by far the best example of the antics that TTFC can get up to has to be the ongoing series on the app, Kamen Rider Outsiders. Running since 2022, Kamen Rider Outsiders is a sequel to the Kamen Rider Genmu's special duology, a group of episodes that started out as an April Fool's joke years prior to the release.
Yeah, I do remember that.
An X8 and 01 crossover event in 2021 and 2022. The end of the second episode of the Genmu special featured a cliffhanger involving Smart Brain from 2003's Kamen Rider Faiz. At the time, this had no clear intention of being followed up on, which was common of TTFC specials to do this over the years. However, when the Genmu specials ended in the fall of 2022, Kamen Rider Outsiders was revealed with a trailer, showing that characters from across the franchise would be involved. And, man, nothing of this makes any sense. In the 2 years since Kamen Rider Outsiders has begun, there have been 6 episodes, in episode 0 and then episodes 1 through 5, released sparingly over usually the period of about 3 months or so between episodes.
Let's try that again.
Episode 5 of Kamen Rider Outsiders is scheduled to be released here in early May 2024, and kick off a quote-unquote new chapter of the series. The staple of each episode of Outsiders is to bring back a character or a concept from a previous Rider series with their original actor reprising their role, and introduce brand new Kamen Rider suits and riders previously never seen before. This has led to a number of interesting forms to be created, and it really opens the door to basically any possibility for future episodes. While Outsiders does have what you could call a plot, trying to connect each episode together as everything goes on has been kind of a mess. The series feels like nothing is happening with any importance, and hardly anything going on is ever explained.
It's marketing!
Which is so much fun. Currently, there is no word at all
You love
how
Premium
long
Bandai.
the series is going to last on TTFC, nor is if this is building towards any sort of movie or grand finale. We're just kind of along for the ride as long as they decide to keep giving us these. I figured this would be a perfect time to prepare for the next episode to release by sharing my thoughts on this crazy series here on Toku Topics. Today I'll be breaking down each episode of the series so far so we can go on this journey together. And if you like content like this here, be sure of course to like and subscribe for more Kamen Rider content, and comment down below if you'd like to see more videos like this one.
Yeah. The usual.
We see
I'm gonna say really quick.
Genmu's, the newly revived Humagear version of Dan Kuroto sits in his office at
Dan the Man
Corporation. Suddenly he is approached by a familiar looking face, not the smart lady of Kamen Rider Faiz, but the smart queen, who is teased at the end of the Genmu specials as mentioned earlier. This mysterious smart queen has the familiar face of Mari Sanada from Kamen Rider Faiz. Meanwhile, outside, Gaiamatsu and Rin from 01 discuss Genmu's recent acquisition of multiple IT companies and recaps the audience on the events of the previous Genmu special. Suddenly, Rin is possessed by Arc, who informs Guy that with Genmu being revived, this has led to other villainous characters from the Kamen Rider franchise now trying to be revived as well. Back in Kuroto's office,
I gotta
the Smart
check.
Brain is here on behalf of Smart Brain, who
anything
want to take over the Genmu
turning
Corporation
off?
to the dismay of Kuroto.
Nothing?
Turning down the offer, he runs away and runs out of battery and collapses.
Nothing. Okay.
He's a hero
Well,
now. He is saved from his untimely death when
that works out for
Mari
me.
Sanada from Kamen Rider Faiz finds
I
him
needed
and
that
plugs
layer.
him into a charger station, who explains that her appearance has been stolen by Smart Brain, who is after Genmu Corp due to a threat from something called Zane. Led by the Arc Orphanok from Kamen Rider Faiz,
God damn it, I
Kuroto
did
is
it
not
again.
worried about this, having experience dealing with an Arc before. Smart Queen and Kuroto confront each other, with Kuroto transforming into Kamen Rider Genmu Muso Gamer, and Smart's Queen becoming Kamen Rider Delta. The two fight, with Delta using an Exceed Charge finisher until Genmu uses Pause and defeats Delta, killing the Smart Queen. Suddenly, the Arc Orphanok himself appears and Kuroto was about to transform again.
Oh, that's
But
right, I
suddenly,
forgot.
Rin and Guy
You're right.
appear to break up the
Whoopsie!
fight, saying that the day will come in which they need to work together.
There we go. Thank you for reminding me. My bad.
Suddenly, a mysterious figure
My bad.
approaches, who
I
some
forgot.
might remember from the cliffhanger ending.
Thank
from
you
the
for informing me,
2021
bud.
TTFC special, Kamen Rider Blades X Kamen Rider
Goofy
Spectre.
Boots will do that too.
This
Yeah,
guy,
my
kid
brain
you
wanted
not,
to
is
escape
named
from that so
Rando
fucking fast. It
Joseph.
didn't really care too much about what was going on.
古の悪の仮面ライダーたちが共に力を合わせる大いなる計画。
Okay, man.
プロジェクトアウトサイダーズを。
単体で、
Okay.
王者がこう、物語の中心になるというのは、これ本当にすごいことだなと思いますし、やっぱりそれ相応の、責任とか、覚悟みたいなのがあったんですけれども、やっぱりそれ以上に幸せな気持ちでしたね。嬉しかったですね。
Now on to the real episode 1, The Mirror World Treasure and Oja's Return. Inside of the Six Leaf Bank, a robbery is being committed by a familiar face. Asakura Takashi from 2002's Kamen Rider Ryuki is about to shoot somebody, before flashing back to the day before. Asakura is meeting with Councilman Nezuchuta to discuss the robbery plan, who apparently is actually behind all of this in order to collect the insurance payout. Asakura is told to make sure that everything goes as planned, even if he has to kill, which this version seems to be against, in contrast to the one that we know from the previous shows. Left alone in the office, a nostalgic noise that fans will recognize as the sound of danger from the Mirror World and Ryuki plays as Kamen Rider Odin suddenly shows up, offering Asakura a blank purple advent deck and inviting him to once again become a Kamen Rider and get back to his old ways and memories of the Rider battle of 20 years prior, which he has since forgotten after Odin's defeat at the hands of Kamen Rider Knight in the Ryuki finale and the world being reset. This Asakura rejects the offer. Nezu reveals that this was all a setup and shows off the advent deck of Kamen Rider Scissors. Enraged, Odin once again appears and offers the offer from before. This time, the Asakura accepts. As Nozu gloats in his office about to transform, Asakura emerges from the mirror world, smashing the mirror to pieces and stabbing Nezu to death. He then transforms and joins an ongoing fight between new users of Kamen Rider Guy, Raya, and Zolda. Oja quickly kills all of them, while back in Nezu's office, out of nowhere...
Okay. Hi, the end. What are you doing here?
And I have no idea what's going on at this point. Kamen Rider DN just shows up and watches. I love this show.
Okay.
Having killed the other riders, Oja is congratulated by Odin for being the final rider, who Oja then attacks with Venno Snaker and slams into the basement of the building from before. Odin drops, out of nowhere as well, the Survive Mugen Advent card. Now this is a fun one. So the Survive Mugen Advent card was a card that we saw in Ryuki, or at least was one that we saw art for back during Ryuki. It was the third missing piece that connected both Ryuki and Knight's Advent cards together, and it was kind of assumed to be like the strongest one. It was released in different ways. There was like SIC forms where people actually used it, but it was never actually used on screen until the Rider Time Ryuki special, which was also a TTFC-like special from 2019, in which Odin appeared for the first time in a long time, used that card, but didn't activate a Survive form, but we finally got to see what this card would do. And now, out of nowhere, Odin is back again, and he drops the card. But of course, every time we see this card, it doesn't actually get used. So the card gets used, and he becomes Kamen Rider Oja Survive form, a brand new form that we've never seen before, ever.
I will say the suit for Oja Survive is pretty fucking sick, I'm not gonna lie.
Who leaves his Advent deck behind. Oja returns to the real world with his deck, grabbed quickly out of his hands by Kamen Rider Diend, who is interested in its power to grant wishes. Asakura begins to fight back, but Diend suggests that he uses his talents to fight a stronger enemy instead, Zane, who appears outlined in the sky. Intrigued, Asakura accepts this and leaves. Diend then hands the Advent deck off to a member of Foundation X, who back at their lab, places it inside of a regular V-buckle, which powers a 3D printer that is sponsored by Hidden Technology from 01, and restores the Wonder Ride book of Disaster from Kamen Saber, as his body rests on a table.
What?
Episode 2, The Omen of Destruction and Disaster's Revival. We see Ren Akamichi from Kamen Rider Saber as he sits alone on a park bench eating a cup of ramen noodles. The red pickled ginger within this cup reminds him of his old rival Disaster.
That's fucking stupid.
We are reminded of through
That's
a
fucking
flashback
stupid.
sequence showing scenes of the two and their relationship and their numerous fights. His
That's
inner self
fucking
then
stupid.
appears and longs for the feelings that the two had when they were fighting each other. Which then suddenly, Megado appear from out of nowhere and are defeated by the arrival of Kamen Rider Hirobi. Hirobi lets Ren know that Zane has predicted that he will soon meet with a revived foe. Back at the Foundation X lab from the end of episode 1 of Outsiders, Disaster's body awakens and leaves, something that they comment on has happened to them before when they revived Hirobi and they ended up signing with Zane over X.
Okay.
But then Disaster just goes out and taunts some bystanders until Ren shows up. He then transforms into Kamen Rider Kenzan and the two begin to fight just like good old times. Kenzan gains the upper hand over Disaster, but stops short of finishing him off. Seeing Kenzan hesitate in this fight, Hirobi declares that he has sided against Zane and joins their fight to stop both of them. Wanting to finish things on their own and not get anybody else involved, Kenzan and Disaster temporarily team up against Hirobi, defeating him until Arc possesses Hirobi and transforms him into Kamen Rider Arc Zero. A weakened Ren is then carried to safety by Disaster, trailed by Arc Zero.
Okay.
The power of Kenzan's Wonder Ride book and the bond that these two rivals, now temporary allies, has.
Okay, I'm just gonna say this right now. I apologize to anyone who is watching me right now and has no fucking clue what anything Kamen Rider related is, because this dude is just saying shit, and I know he is, and I know what he's talking about. But I guarantee if you don't know Kamen Rider, these are just words. These are just sounds. And I am so sorry for that. I'm just like, I'm sitting here like kind of realizing what is going on in like an existential way, like in an absurdist way. I'm like stepping back and going, I'm hearing the words coming out of his mouth and the words in like the string that they are coming out. And like truly, if you don't know what the fuck he's talking about, this means nothing. This is gibberish. This is sponsored plastic flashing gibberish. I'm not marking that one. I'm marking that one. I'm calling myself out. God damn it. All right.
Ugh, gross. Can you at least turn away when you do that?
Shut up. You're behind a screen.
Has created,
you're in the
transforms
TV.
Disaster's sword into a brand new Seiken, the Kokuraken Shikoku, and creates the Gaikotsu Ninja Den Wonder Ride book. Using this materialized Seiken sword driver and these new weapons, Disaster transforms into the brand new, never-before-seen Kamen Rider Disaster, an outcome that Arc did not predict and is easily overwhelmed by.
Okay.
Before Disaster finishes Hirobi off, he is shielded by a familiar face, Nico Saiba from Kamen Rider Ex-Aid, because we did not have enough shows involved in this particular episode. She warns Disaster that Zane will now see him as an enemy, who Disaster now says he must beat first in order to resume his fight with Ren.
Who the fuck is Zane?
Falling out of control, Nico calls Hidden Intelligence and calls a board meeting at Geno Corp to assist in the revival of the forbidden game, Kamen Rider Chronicle. So now that we're about halfway through the series of Outsiders thus far, I want to take a short little detour from covering each of the episodes and talk about a very important other aspect of the series, and honestly the biggest reason why any of these exist at all, toys! So besides selling membership
merchandise.
to TFC, of course Bandai Japan has made a number of merchandise releases related to Outsiders. There's these acrylic stands and pins and stuff that you can get at the Kamen Rider store, but those are not as cool, and of course not the things that you were probably expecting. Now, for Episode 0, there was no new merch at all, really, as the Genmu Muso-related items had already been released for the Genmu special alongside the Arc Thouser key and such like that. There was soda figures of them, but those all happened before Outsiders. They're, like, brought into the show now, like, they're considered Outsiders things, but, like, But basically, the first new actual piece of merchandise came from Episode 1, when the Candy Toy Soda Chronicle Ryuki line made a special premium Bandai exclusive 2-pack of Oja figures, including his not released before blank form from the Ryuki movie, which was just a fun Easter egg thing to do, and of course a figure of his brand new Survive form. Now with episode 2, there were a lot more releases. Soto made another set, this time themed after Disaster, which included a reissue of his figure from the original Saber line that had additional paint applications and stickers, and also came with some bonus stickers if you wanted to upgrade your Kenzan from the previous line to be a little bit more detailed. And of course, the secondary figure was the brand new Kamen Rider Disaster. Now, while for Oja, they still have not, at the time of this video, and also the time of Outsiders thus far, released his version of the upgraded, I guess, Veno Visor Sway, or whatever they would call his Survive thing, which is just a repaint of Ryuki's Drag Visor Sway. And there's a rumor that there's a CSM of that on the way pretty soon.
There is.
Alongside, like, Knight's Survive stuff. So I would not be surprised if Oja Survive toys are down the horizon eventually. They do need to release that deck and everything, too. The Survive Mugen card was previously released in like, every version
didn't mean to do that.
of the CSM drivers. So we don't need the card, but we need the visor and the deck. I'm sure we'll get them eventually. But for episode 2, there was some deluxe releases. As Disaster Sky Gotsuken Ninja Den Wonder Ride book was then released alongside the emblem to turn the regular deluxe sword driver into the Kogakuken Shikoku.
Okay, and then we're gonna move
Bandai
this
also
one
used
down.
this opportunity to reissue the Haken Blood driver, which was used by Kamen Rider Gauchi. And they did that because Disaster used that driver in the original Saber show, so like still kind of connected. And this was a good excuse for them to finally release the Kamen Rider Tassel Dark Book, which was used only in the Saber final stage. So this was a really cool thing, seeing old toys get some reissues and also some brand new stuff, being able to use this as an excuse to release never before released gimmicks. I really like the Saber Alchema stuff we got for episode 2. So jumping right back into this with episode 3, the battle fight resumes in Zane's birth. Arc gives Hirobi a recap of the series thus far, as Zane's birth is quickly approaching. Back at Genom Corp, Nico Saiba is approached by George Karizaki from Kamen Rider Revice, who brings her the completed Zane driver in one of his typical rider-driver cases, and is told that she just needs to upload a copy of Kamen Rider Chronicle to the driver for it to be fully complete. Afterwards, she is told to then bring this to a mysterious lab. Back at Foundation X, they use the Kamen Rider Chronicle gas shots in a previously unseen and still not released at the time of this video, black and white buckle driver that seemingly does absolutely nothing but just be a gas shot holder. Am I reading too much into this? Are we going to get a Kamen Rider of this? What is this here for? Why did they show this? There's still a buckle driver from a couple, like, V Cinemas or something before they...
Yeah.
Bandai, what? Aren't you supposed to make toys for the show? This powers up a machine to revive 2 Humagear bodies, one with the destroyed pieces of Gold Drive's Bano driver, still smashed from his iconic defeat at the hands of his son, Kamen Rider Mach, back in Drive. One of the revived bodies, looking like Gold Drive but now bronze, awakens. Nico heads back to the lab address, revealed to be from board of Kamen Rider Blade. She meets with President Tachibana, which fans will recognize as Kamen Rider Garen from Blade, who is looking at the data of rider cards from Kamen Rider Decade's power system. He states how most Kamen Riders have lent their powers towards the completion of Zane, and that Arc states that Aruto Hidden, who was also known as Kamen Rider 01, was the first to lend his powers to this cause, before he was interrupted by Tanjiro Bano, who kicks Hirobi out of the server. Hirobi transforms and begins to fight Bronze Drive. Nico is called, alerted to Bano's appearance, and she asks who will be using this brand new driver.
Bro, what is happening?
As Foundation X watches Hirobi and Bronze Drive fight, the other revived Humagear cowers in fear in the corner. Hirobi is defeated and about to be killed when Kamen Rider Zane finally approaches. Pulling out a decayed-looking card for Exade Muteki Gamer, he uses his hypercritical sparking finisher on Bano, shredding this card as it's used. Then, using a rider card of Cross Saber, he summons the Haoken, used to summon all of the other Seiken from Saber's show. This attack is fatal, and Bronze Drive explodes. Then, Zane cancels his transformation,
oh, it is a
revealing
shredder,
his
what the
identity
fuck?
to be none other than Sakurai Yuto, once known to fans as Kamen Rider Zeronos from 2007's Den-O.
Oh, is that who that was? Okay.
Alright, so before we get into the final episode here, you're probably wondering, what the hell's going on? And I am too. So Zane's driver, right? Zane is the main character of Outsiders here. Zane has not gotten his driver released yet. The theory about this is that not only have they not figured out how they're going to make these cards shred in a toy, because that's an interesting feature to work out, but we also probably haven't seen every card that Zane's going to use. There's definitely cards after this episode that he uses, that Bandai's probably going to want to pack in with the inevitable deluxe driver someday.
I don't think
now,
I want
love
a
this driver. It includes a progress
toy
key
that
from Zero
shreds
One to transform.
its
It
own
uses rider cards from Decade.
parts?
These are technically
That's
not the rider cards.
weird.
They're Zane cards. Instead of having the regular rider symbols on the back, they just have a generic Zane logo, but that's because they can sell them to you again. For all intents and purposes, they are derived from Decade card technology. They look exactly like Decade cards. They're Decade cards. So they're just probably like temporary use Decade cards, basically, which is why they shred them. The TVosity website kind of brings up that the reason why they shred them is because it would be overpowered if you could just spam these attacks. So it was kind of believed that Zane's power set would destroy these riders, like, cause since the riders gave their powers, people were wondering, like, is X-Sim Muteki Gamer and Cross Saber like erased from like canon now? And it seems like no, it's not erased from canon. It's just Zane can only use every rider's power set once, which. Okay, I like that idea a lot. Now, also, if you haven't been paying attention here, we got a lot of characters going on here. So it seems like the main characters of the show going forward are going to be Nico from Xaid, Tachibana from Blade, Zane, which is also technically Zeronos from Den-O, and then probably Arc, I guess, technically from Zero One. This series is a crossover between Blade, Xaid, Zero One, and Den-O. But of course, so far we've already seen double things, we've seen drive things, we've seen saber things, Ryuki things, Decade things technically. Forze is a card that shows up. Does that count? So it looks like we don't know if the goal is to bring every rider show into this thing from like Kuga through Gachard.
What did you just say? What did you just call that?
Recent episode of Outsiders at the time of this video. Mad Time.
Gesundheit? What the fuck came out of your goddamn mouth?
Drive comes out of hiding. He was the Humagear that we didn't see previously in the last episode, or they were kind of hiding, after Bono is defeated by Zane. He's then trapped to being a face once again on the tablet, like he was in Drive, so he's not technically dead. Despite Foundation X reviving Brain alongside Bono for the purposes of joining Project Outsiders, Brain claims he doesn't quite side with their cause. Something that doesn't really matter to Foundation X, as if he becomes a nuisance for them, they're just going to have Arc hack them and do their bidding.
What in the world?
Now, I don't understand that, because Arc apparently is supposed to be anti-Zane, or he's pro-Zane with helping Hirobi, but then Foundation X threatens to use him against Brain, which wouldn't that just continue to put him on the same side? Did they mean somebody else other than Arc? Do they know Arc's not on their side? What the fuck is going on? Brain leaves with Yuto to go back to board, where the Zane team currently meets, asking Nico to release Comrade Chronicle to the public, which...
I'm just gonna reiterate, even I'm having a hard time following what the fuck they're talking about. Like, I know what they're talking about, and I don't know what they're talking about.
She is against, knowing firsthand how dangerous that this game can be. Despite Brain's research on Yuto's past as Zeronos, this version of Yuto doesn't come from a timeline where he was a hero. Instead, he sides with Tachibana, who plans to use Comrade Chronicle, Zane, and the gathered Legend Rider powers they've collected to eliminate humanity. Overhearing this on Brain's phone, Bono then alerts Foundation X to Zane's plan. Hirobi turns against Tachibana, who then threatens Nico to release the game and ends up being possessed by Arc, giving him the power to transform into Kamen Rider Arc Zero and fight Zane. Instead, Tachibana takes this one, transforms into Kamen Rider Garen, and they fight. Arc Zero gains the upper hand in this fight until Yuto arrives, and we see the first on-screen transformation of Kamen Rider Zane.
Zane, not Zane. Alright. Zane, okay.
Who uses Blade King for his power to attack Arc Zero. Back at board, Brain remembers his brief time
that's a weighty transformation.
Which was in the 2019 special Kamen Rider Brain, which, like Genmu's, started as an April Fool's joke, then they made it into a real thing, and then it was only in a dream sequence for him, but then Brain used this rider suit again in the Overquartzer film, but you could argue that that was like plucked from a memory or something. So technically, this is Brain's first, like, in the real world, like, usage or mention or memory of the Brain suit existing. I love the Brain suit. I want
the Brain suit is pretty cool.
Brain suit. I can't wait to see that footage of the Brain suit that we saw in the preview for episode 4. That fight looks like it's going to be really, really cool. I cannot wait to see it, and it's going to be great. Brain shows up and gets attacked and immediately knocked out of his transformation. The clips from the preview not being present in the episode whatsoever.
Buh.
Defeated, Brain begs Zane to come to his sense of justice, and he leads to Yuto canceling his transformation. Off to the side, Garen picks up Rouse cards that Zane just dropped on the forest floor after attacking Arc Zero and also attacking Brain, and uses one of the Keen Form Rouse cards to transform into Garen Keen Form, which is another thing that Arc didn't predict apparently. Now this form is an interesting one, so technically there is a Garen Keen Form that's existed before. It was only ever seen in SIC, so it was like a cool figure, like kind of what if concept thing.
It was never a canon thing.
Not super exaggerated, like what you would expect a regular rider suit Keen Form for Garen to look like. Now what's really cool is that this form has actually appeared since Outsiders. It was used in the 20th anniversary Blade special stage show event, in which they also gave Liangle a Keen Form for the first time. Now, apparently, from what I understand,
they did. Holy shit, that looks good.
As to the origin of Garen's
I need that. I need that.
So
you can't just show me that and not give me that to me. I need that.
Yuto,
I need that.
This could be an alternate Tachibana, which would explain why he's a little bit more like, genocidal. So hopefully, maybe that's why like the Keen Form's explanation is very consistent. It could also be that this is Outsiders, and you got a brand new. Two of these forms riders just picked cards off the ground. I love this show. That's not even in the script. I'm looking at the script here. The last 2 minutes aren't even in the script. I'm just talking now, and I just realized that two of the forms in this fucking show, they just pick up cards that we've seen before and transform. So Yuto is then taken over by Zane, and mimics Nico's voice to authorize the launch of Kamen Rider Chronicle. Oh yeah. Well, what did Garen Keen Form do? It just beat Arc Zero. It didn't really do much of anything. Anyway, it's time for the next episode, because on a distant rooftop, George Karizaki holds out the Juga driver, with this situation of course being
unexpected.
Okay.
And that's where Kamen Rider Outsiders has ended thus far. Except at the end of this episode, we had a little teaser where our good old friend Dan Carotto appears once again, and that it is time for him to reappear and become the true protagonist of Kamen Rider Outsiders, who is ready to come and fight Zane, teasing that a new chapter of Outsiders will be beginning in 2024.
It's your boy, Dan the Man.
That brings us up to current day. So, of course, if you're expecting, what is the teaser for episode 5 show? Of course, with Juga's little teaser there, it's going to be him. Well, why would you think that? That makes sense. And Outsiders doesn't care about that. So, Outsiders episode 5 is planned to be released on May 12th, 2024, which is why this video is coming out now. So far, we've seen a couple new forms for this, including Genmu Hyper Fumitsu Gamer. So even though he already got Genmu Muso in the Genmu special, I guess technically Outsiders didn't give him a new form, so this is going to have a new repainted version of X-A's Muteki Gashat, a repaint of a Maximum Gashat of some kind. It is not his previous Muteki Gashat that we saw, the Maximum Gashat from the Visa Next film. There's also this Gashat we see him use briefly in another promo. It looks like it's maybe an ARC version of his Proto Mighty Action X, so super interested in that. Kind of our main draw for this next episode is going to be Kamen Rider 03. We don't know who this is yet technically, but we see the Izu's 02 form and Arc 1 are here, Arc 0, so it looks like maybe the two of them fused into the 03. We're adding more rider shows into this. Sumari from Kamen Rider Geats is joining in this episode.
Oh, okay.
I have no idea why, other than, if you haven't figured this out, the main rider of Kamen Rider Outsiders is none other than Yuya Takahashi, and if you don't know who that is, he's the main rider and series creator of X-Aid, 01, Geats, and Outsiders. So I think if you kind of then think about that, it all starts to kind of make a little bit of sense.
This is making sense.
Has gotten a mainline Soto figure released in early 2024 as part of both the 4th set of retail and premium version Soto Gachard figures. However, joining in on some of these unreleased items from Outsiders thus far, there's been no figures or toy releases related to Bronze Drive, Garen Keen Form, and Zane's Driver, like I mentioned earlier, but apparently, probably all these will show up, and of course, from episode 5, it looks like we got at least 3 new Gashats, the 03 units, which I think has a listing already. There's rumors, which I guess we'll find out.
This is confirmed.
The video.
I've already seen it.
Kamen Rider Build.
This is an old video.
That joins this whole thing. I hope and pray that we get an episode 6 teaser at the end of this upcoming weekend when this video is coming out.
This is real.
I cannot wait. But that is all going to do it for our Kamen Rider Outsiders, because there's nothing else we have to talk about whatsoever. But anyway, guys, you guys have been watching Kamen Rider Gachard recently. So Legend, he's a fun guy, right? I've been using some clips of him. And there's this really cool episode of Gachard that aired recently where he got his final form. And they brought back these old rider suits. They had new people play these evil riders, which was kind of a fun thing. So we had Dark Kiva, and we had Eternal, and we had Glare. The two of the three of them were kind of defeated. We're still kind of working on one of them. But the Glare got away. And so basically... Oh my god. Oh, well, shit. So I guess we're not bringing Gachard into Outsiders. We're bringing Outsiders into Gachard. So yeah, as I was working on this video, Kamen Rider Zane appeared in Gachard, which is definitely not the way I would have expected this to go. So I guess Outsiders is now not only connecting everything from its past of the franchise together, but it's now breaching containment and seeping into the main regular current television show. So that is certainly interesting. Well, I don't know what that means. I assume it's basically just a glorified promo for the fact that there hasn't been an episode of Outsiders since October 2023, and we're finally coming back to it. It's probably something like that, but either way,
more than likely that tracks.
You are caught up to watch the new episode of Kamen Rider Outsiders and enjoy in the wackiness and absolutely insanity that this is. It is the most turn your brain off fun that I've ever had watching Kamen Rider in a very long time. So let me know down in the comments below, what do you think of the series? Have you bought any of the toys that have been released? Which toys do you want them to release? And if this keeps going, what characters and suits and shows and forms would you like to see introduced, connected, brought back, made, whatever? I would love to know your guys' thoughts on this, because this is really a lot of fan fiction made real. It's really cool. So, of course, until next time, if you guys like videos like this, I like to do more videos kind of like this. This is a little bit of a different sort of type of video. I'll be sure to like and subscribe for more content. And, of course, you can follow me on Twitter at LiveRangerKey or LandyFigPR. See you all later. Also, this theme song, I didn't talk about the theme song yet. It's called Who's the Outsider? Or What's the Outsider? Basically, kind of, I think, sort of, in my mind, I take this as a joke to be like, hey, what is this show? But it's kind of a bop. It's like, da, 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 da. I gotta do this so I don't get copyrighted. Da, 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 da. Who's the outsider? It's pretty good. Cannot wait for more.
Bah. Bah. Okay. That was interesting. Because I had not actually watched any of Outsiders, so that helps? Question mark? It really didn't. It really didn't, but I guess now I know what's going on, so I can jump in and whatever. I guess. I might do that at some point. Not right now,
Ultramantiga, the most popular Ultra Series TV show since the 90s.
Make sure.
Or, if one should believe a 2022 NHK poll, the most popular Ultra Series TV show ever, at least for the moment.
True.
Anyway, there's a lot to talk about with Ultramantiga. From introducing the concept of Ultraman changing forms, to the less than ideal treatment it received at the hands of 4Kids for the American market.
Yeah.
Though today I'd like to focus on some of the show's unappreciated brilliance, and the person that owes a lot of it to. This individual is not only one of the best of the show's several directors, they can be called the maverick of the show itself. Do you have any ideas on who that could be? Many might be tempted to say Akio Jisoji, a well-regarded name among Ultra fans, in both the East and the West at this point. Although it's something that has been somewhat diluted by time and the countless works his output has since inspired, the independent-minded young director had an art house, often uniquely thought-provoking approach to telling tokusatsu stories that set him apart from his peers and has kept him a favorite for ages. Still, while Ultramantiga marked Jisoji's return to TV Ultraman for the first time in decades, he is not the focus of this video. This time another star shined brighter, and that would be Kyoto Kawasaki, one of the great unsung heroes of late 90s tokusatsu, who was, fittingly enough, once considered the Akio Jisoji of the time. Kawasaki wasn't exactly a newcomer. The relatively young director had a brief stint in Hollywood, where he worked on Honey, I Shrunk the Kids as a production assistant, and, upon his return to Japan, directed episodes 7 and 8 of Lightning's Superhuman Gridman, the latter got his foot in the door at Tsuburaya Productions, the company behind Ultraman, and eventually, a position on Ultramantiga. Ultramantiga would be his first experience with Ultraman, and, like others of his generation, such as Shinji Higuchi and Keita Amemiya, Kawasaki sought to take the art form higher, And, in pursuit of these lofty ambitions, not only crafted several of Ultraman Tiga's best episodes, but produced some of the finest accomplishments in tokusatsu. However, in order to understand what made him and Ultraman Tiga such a big deal, it might be worth knowing a little bit about the world in which Ultraman Tiga was made. It was the early 90s, and roughly the last decade of Japanese special effects had been dominated by bright and colorful children's fare. Most of the market was represented either by Toei's TV efforts like Super Sentai and the Fushigi comedy series, or the monopoly Toho held on the theatrical side of things with the Vs. Godzilla series, which had recently been retooled to appeal to families, and was in reality carried by children. Of course, this doesn't mean that more experimental and mature works didn't exist, but generally, those were reserved for home media, or saw very limited theatrical distribution. By the mid-90s, however, there was a shift in talent behind the scenes. The kids of the 1960s and 1970s, raised on classic tokusatsu film and television like the original Ultraman and early Godzilla features, were now adults eager and able to influence the direction of the art form. They sought the best of both worlds, something mature and thought-provoking, yet accessible to all ages. That said, their work was definitely cut out for them, as tokusatsu had become the subject of ridicule. Ever since Star Wars raised expectations for special effects, way back in 1977, viewers in both the East and the West had become increasingly unkind to the art form, and Hollywood only continued to raise the bar from there. In the minds of many, tokusatsu wasn't anything to take seriously. Nevertheless, this new younger generation of talent was determined to challenge these negative perceptions and prove the potential of the art form. This is a fascinating, little-known story in the West that I plan to revisit in more detail another time. Though for now, the event to turn the tide and start what I'll call the fourth tokusatsu boom was Gamera's very well-regarded revival in 1995, Gamera, Guardian of the Universe. This film flipped the script on what was thought possible with the art form, demonstrating what many thought to be impossible at that time, that tokusatsu can be home to thoughtful, well-crafted stories and receive positive mainstream attention. You know the type of acclaim Godzilla -1 received in the West recently? That's what Gamera, Guardian of the Universe was met with in Japan, and Ultraman Tiga became one of the first works to capitalize on that momentum. As the first primetime Japanese Ultra Series TV show since Ultraman 80, roughly 15 years earlier, and a complete reboot of the series, Ultraman Tiga was unmistakably a new generation Ultraman. While the basic idea was left unchanged, it's still a show about a team that fights aliens and giant monsters, in this case Guts, and on this team there's a special member, in this case Daigo, who can secretly transform into the title character to lend a helping hand when the going gets too tough. Yet it is very much a product of the fourth tokusatsu boom and its desire to engage with the material in a more consistently thoughtful, yet accessible fashion. For example, in past shows, Ultraman was often readily accepted as the hero without much in the way of reluctance or questioning. Monsters and aliens alike were often treated as almost ordinary. However, Ultraman Tiga saw something different. It would have a relatively grounded setting, exploring how people respond to larger-than-life entities and situations for the first time. Despite his relative youth compared to other staff and the competitive environment that was the show's production, the 35-year-old Kyoto Kawasaki thrives in the pursuit of this and other endeavors, quickly distinguishing himself as a force to be reckoned with, and it's about time he gets Western recognition for those accomplishments. Kawasaki directed 8 of Ultraman Tiga's 52 episodes. Episode 5, The Day When the Monster Appeared. Episode 6, Second Contact. Episode 15, Phantom Dash. Episode 16, The Revived Demon. Episode 27, I Saw Obiko. Episode 28, One Vanishing Moment. Episode 38, The Mirage Monster. And Episode 39, Dear Mr. Ultraman. And as suggested earlier, his episodes are among the most noteworthy of the entire show, especially his last 4. So, let's take a closer look at what Kawasaki brought to the table. Looking at the ideas and themes explored within Kawasaki's episodes wouldn't be a bad place to start, as you could almost always count on something of value whenever he was at the helm. While every idea could not be attributed to him, because there was a different writer attached to just about every episode, Kawasaki took a very hands-on approach to whatever he directed, and what seems to have been an unconventional move given the reaction of the writers. He had no qualms about changing scripts whenever he could, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. In the meantime, a good place to start would be Kawasaki's first episode, Episode 5, The Day When the Monster Appeared. Working with a screenplay penned by Chiaki Konaka of Serial Experiments Lane and Digimon Tamers fame, Kawasaki's debut does a number of interesting things. First, in an early excellent example of Ultraman Tiga's fundamentally different approach to its worldview compared to those of its predecessors, there's an emphasis on how a giant monster impacts the daily lives of the masses, a real-world, simulation-based interest it shares with the Gamera films from the same time. Rarely did the earlier shows spend much time in this territory beyond the genre staple evacuation scenes. So, while not an exact match, maybe the closest example of the simulation approach prior to Ultraman Tiga is episode 21 of Ultraman Taro. This comparison is not intended to criticize Ultraman Taro or suggest that it is an inferior show. It's a great episode and a fantastic series. The point of this exercise is simply to highlight the different approaches to the material. And with that said, let's begin. Ultraman Taro episode 21 sees citizens complaining about the loud noises of a giant cicada. Crowds form on separate occasions demanding that Zat, the defense team of the show in question, and law enforcement eliminate the insect. Unimpressed by suggestions that they wait a week for the creature to die on its own, the crowds attack the cicada, and eventually, all hell breaks loose. Despite having some interesting comments about the urbanization happening in Japan at the time, the episode depicts its conflict in simple terms. A lot of the complaints from citizens are rather trivial given the gravity of the situation, and the response from authorities is a little on the unrealistic side of things. For example, the most seen between two perimeters is a couple of ZAT officers in one case, and a single police officer in the other. The episode primarily sticks to what it needs to meet its immediate narrative concerns, and get the monster of the week to start a destructive rampage that Ultraman must stop. In short, real-world implications are an afterthought, compared to the greater attention to detail Ultraman Tiga would bring to the table. With the Ultraman Tiga episode, what is presumed to be the corpse of a monster washes ashore, and emanates a foul odor. The stench is toxic enough to send dozens of people to the hospital, and leave several others in a coma, naturally leading to the citizens requesting an immediate removal of the body, and guts being put into action by their parent organization, TPC. From start to finish, the episode offers multiple perspectives on the situation, through the use of news crews, TV commentators, journalists, and everyday people weighing in on the crisis, and providing their own unique insight. For instance, the people getting their houses stepped on, or having their daily routines inconvenienced, might not have the warmest opinions about guts, and that's exactly what we see. Specifics about casualties are cited. There's deliberation about why the monster should be moved so quickly, and the potential consequences of the various options they could pursue. Law enforcement sets up a perimeter, and there are additional personnel to support Guts officers, very different from a lot of the older shows, where the immediate defense team seemed responsible for everything. These are details that complement the simulation-like approach, and desire to highlight the impact of monsters on a world such as our own, a world where monsters are still extraordinary, and such intrigue is at the forefront of the show's interest. It's also a move from the wackier sensibilities that the Ultra series embraced in the 70s. Of course, he alone cannot be credited for the realism or focus of this episode, much less the show. However, Kawasaki does an excellent job with the material, and even makes his own valuable contributions. For example, details about the effects of the smell, such as it putting people into critical condition, was Kawasaki's idea, and a potentially sensitive one at that. Why? The 1995 Tokyo subway siren attack. The domestic terrorist attack, which Japan was less than 2 years removed from at the time, involved cult members unleashing nerve gas within the Tokyo subway, killing over a dozen people and injuring thousands more.
Pretty bad.
It remains the biggest terrorist incident in modern Japanese history, and is at least one reason why Japan doesn't really have public trash cans today. But I digress. Point is, according to Kawasaki, there were attempts to talk him out of including what could be read as an allusion to the attack. Nevertheless, undoubtedly familiar with the long history of tokusatsu, drawing on contemporary terrible events, he held course. And it wasn't the only edit he made. The episode's humorous exchange between Hori and Shinjo was another Kawasaki addition.
そんなことより細胞のサンプルを採取だろ分かってまんがなこいつ鼻がバカになってるちゃうか何がバカだってああ耳はええねや
It was a move motivated by his desire to combat what he felt had been limited characterization up to that point, especially between the characters in question. Finally, the comedic note on which the episode ends was another Kawasaki contribution, and was something done without Konaka's permission.
怪獣災害が頻発するこの日本の苦境の中で
Yeah, Tiga is a really good season to start with, but I feel like if you do, you're like starting at peak in a lot of ways. Having said that,
although Konaka was initially displeased about not being consulted, he was ultimately happy with the change, considering it a nice note on which to end the episode, and something that helped humanize the episode's lead character, Guts strategist and second-in-command, Munakata, who had been little more than stoic and work-oriented prior to that point. The changes made in episode 5 were the first of many times, and many ways, Kawasaki altered screenplays to meet his vision. And why is this a big deal? Well, based on comments Kawasaki made in a rather candid 2002 interview, writers typically have better relationships with producers, and thus are often higher on the food chain than directors in the Japanese TV industry. Still, despite the tension it seems to have caused behind the scenes, Kawasaki seemed to do a lot of what he wanted. Perhaps the most important example of both the powers writers held and Kawasaki's hands-on nature is episode 27, I Saw Obiko. In a script written by Iota, the first woman writer of the Heisei Ultra series. Episode 27 tells the story of a sad spirit, troubled by the march of time, lashing out as the last traces of the past it loved are swept away. While demonizing urbanization might have been the expected route for it to take, the episode instead depicts change as inevitable, and encourages viewers to appreciate things while they have them. Elevated by Kawasaki's directing abilities, the episode manages a delicate balancing act of sharp tonal contrast, starting on a more humorous note, before masterfully, almost stealthily, shifting into a tearjerker in its latter half with a sympathy for the monster. In fact, the last fight isn't really a fight for Ultraman or Guts. They've taken to feeling sorry for Obiko, and only want to stop him from destroying the town in his fit of rage. Most of Ultraman's actions are evasive, or attempts at de-escalation. Ota's script originally had Tiga, at the urging of Reina, take Obiko to space in order to find peace. Conflicts being resolved with Ultraman taking a monster to space is nothing new to the Ultra series. Examples of this convenient, non-violent solution include episode 15 of the original 1966 series, a few episodes of Ultraman Taro, and episode 10 of Return of Ultraman.
Taro.
誰にも邪魔されず冬眠できるってわけだ。
デーゴンが見えるわ。あれは星だよ。
However, Kawasaki had a few problems with this. 1. Obiko was not a space monster, and 2. Kawasaki felt Obiko getting banished from his home was a depressing thought. Furthermore, there's a cultural preference for dying in one's homeland. So, with that in mind, honoring that preference seemed appropriate since Obiko's main grievance concerned his home, that being an old Japanese village, on the verge of losing the rest of its traditional identity. Consequently, Kawasaki changes the ending. Obiko, unable to accept that his village was not how he remembered it, and could never be again, baits Ultraman into killing him, and dies in Ultraman's arms. He dies on his own terms, on the eve before the final traces of the village he knew would be forever swept away. Following Obiko's death, in one last humanizing moment, Guts members speculate the reasoning behind his actions.
Obiko が町の人を怖がらせたのは自分のことを覚えててほしかったからじゃないのかな。
あの昔の村をオビコがずっと覚えてたみたいに。
According to Kawasaki, altering the end came at the cost of hours of negotiation and arguments. Nevertheless, they settled with something they both could agree on, and both later got to have their way elsewhere. Ota used her Monster Goes to Space ending in episode 32, and Kawasaki was given greater incentive to do his own thing, which resulted in him trying his hand at scripting, and brings us to what is widely considered his masterpiece, and the only episode of Ultraman Tiga he wrote. Episode 28, One Vanishing Moment. While the episode can be enjoyed on its own, it's worth having the context of the two episodes it builds upon, episode 6 and episode 15. Episode 6, Second Contact, is the start of a trilogy of episodes that tells an escalating, emotional story about the conflict between man and monster. As has often been the case in the art form, dating back to even the original Godzilla from 1954, man's scientific recklessness, or at least the unintended consequences of scientific progress, has resulted in a rampaging giant monster. What makes this trilogy special is how well it juggles sympathy for its monsters with a realistic, nuanced rejection of that sentiment. Starting with episode 6, let's take a look. In short, the electromagnetic radiation emissions of modern society have disturbed critters, a species which resides in the skies. This exposure has mutated them into the monster Gazort, which then descends from the heavens to wreak havoc upon mankind. In the first encounter with critters and Gazort's
a funny
Tori
name.
makes an honest effort to bridge the gap between species. This despite losing his mentor to them earlier in the episode. But not only does Hori come to quickly realize diplomacy with critters is likely impossible due to incompatible existences. For example, critters have cannibalistic tendencies and consider friends to be food, but his attempts at bridging the gap nearly get him eaten.
翻訳がうまくいってないんか。
友達はガゾートの食べ物。
何言うてんねん。
Next, while not to suggest it's the first episode to get emotional, or at least have a bittersweet resolution, because episodes 4 and 11 do these things first, Kawasaki's second attempt at Critters in episode 15 is a hard-hitting ride with the most personal example of tragedy in the show up to that point. The episode builds upon foundations laid in other episodes. Specifically, it further fleshes out Guts member Shinjo and his sister, Mayumi, a nurse at TBC headquarters introduced back in episode 9 and seen again in the episodes to follow, like 10 and 11. Episode 15 has Mayumi lose her husband-to-be, Takuma, and Gazort's counterattack. Not only does it relate to the emotional reaction Shinjo had to other people losing loved ones back in episode 4, it gives the audience a chance to see Shinjo put in the same position. And there's the added punch of the tragedy happening to characters we know and have grown attached to, as opposed to the one-off victims of previous episodes. Takuma's death is a biting loss, and along with the siblings' initial efforts to deny the obvious but grim reality, there's heart-wrenching payoff to something set up in the same episode. Towards the start of the episode, Daigo makes a joke about Mayumi not being able to run and cry in her brother's arms forever, saying that it's natural for someone to come along and take Shinjo's place. And this is the note the episode ends on: Mayumi mourning in her brother's arms as Daigo, unable to do anything, watches silently in the distance. The existence of critters and the reason they're a problem already puts humanity in a difficult spot. Not disturbing them requires a huge sacrifice. That sacrifice being a reduction, and possibly elimination of an important part of modern life, electromagnetic radiation, which is involved in just about everything from satellite communication to cell phone use. And, within the universe of the show, is something that will supply humanity with limitless clean energy. So, when taking into account the bloodshed and devastation critters have caused, it's no surprise this conflict eventually reaches its breaking point. Bringing us back to episode 28. The threat of critters was supposed to end with episode 6. Konaka was satisfied with what had been done with them there, and episode 15 was meant to feature a new monster. It was even supposed to be a lovey-dovey episode, and not the tragedy it ended up being. Yet Kawasaki felt there was more to explore with critters, and that feeling persisted even after a second episode. So he pushed for a third outing. And although he directed the earlier episodes, they were both written by different writers, and, due to his mixed feelings about the previous attempts to explore the subject, this time he decided to write the script himself. So, with the freedom that afforded him, Kawasaki took the opportunity to paint a living world and build on points he was personally responsible for establishing in the first place. Past shows sometimes brought back characters, though this was mostly limited to the Ultras or monsters. Rarely was there a lot in the way of continuity in service of human characters in the world. Plus, the older shows often retcon things. Examples include the first couple of shows not initially existing in the same universe, and Taro's origin changing within his own show, and again in the movie. Long story short, early continuity was a mess. So, while the following examples will probably seem obvious or expected for serialized storytelling, Kawasaki was arguably one of the first to really get that ball rolling in this regard for Ultraman Tiga, and the Ultra series in general, especially for continuity across non-consecutive episodes. Anyway, with that said, let's start with Hori's souring opinion about critters. First, he expresses doubt in response to Reina comparing them to angels in the final moments of episode 6. This after learning they killed his mentor and he only barely escaped a similar fate. Then, in episode 15, Hori reminds others that Gazor eats people, a nice nod to continuity that both showcases Hori's changing attitude and heightens the stakes for the fight to come in the episode. Next, Kawasaki thought it important to revisit Mayumi after the loss of her lover, and ensure she had a believable progression in the aftermath of that traumatic event. Finally, back in episode 15, Guts Communications Officer Yasumi requested to join the fight. Here Kawasaki gives the character that opportunity, putting the zealous youth on the front lines to witness the ugliness of war firsthand. But anyway, with that context, time to really get into the last installment of the Critters trilogy. Episode 28, One Vanishing Moment. Humanity has decided enough is enough. Not only have there been the events of episodes 6 and 15, it is said a lot more has happened off screen in the time since, and Guts has been tasked to wipe out critters once and for all. This operation is to be performed alongside another, an operation to deal with Jobari, the latest giant monster Japan has to contend with. Specifics are not provided about why the creature has suddenly appeared, though given the presence of a nearby residential area, it could be that human expansion has encroached on the domain of this creature, and ignited yet another conflict. These operations leave Guts divided about what the right course of action should be, and the ensuing debates constitutes the soul of the episode, affording the audience a chance to see how the main players have changed their positions towards critters over the course of the trilogy, and ultimately see their individual positions on war and peace altogether. Hori's initial response to critters was one of optimism. However, that goodwill has turned into pro-extermination sentiment, confident that coexistence isn't possible as humanity isn't going to radically change its course for the sake of a single species that has already caused so many problems. Shinjo, still bothered by the loss his family has suffered, and wanting to prevent others from suffering the same fate, has similar feelings. Yasumi is shown to be a little too excited about the prospect of war, and overconfident in its weapons, which draws attention to how war is nothing to take lightly, and highlights the paradox of protecting peace with an ever-growing amount and magnitude of power. But on the other hand, it also shows the need to have some ability to protect the ones you love. Reyna has a more humane perspective, questioning what gives humanity the right to wipe out life forms it considers inconvenient to its way of life. It was human activity that started the conflict, and human activity that continues to perpetuate it. She wonders why Tiga is willing to protect us, and whether we're even worth protecting in the first place. Finally, Mayumi, in the aftermath of the tragic events of episode 15, has lost much of her happy-go-lucky attitude in favor of more solemn behavior and a staunch anti-war stance, fearing death while valuing life and love more than ever before.
平和？今が平和？お兄ちゃんたちが戦うのをやめれば、神様も怪獣を出すのをやめるわ。きっと。
In short, there's a lot of inquiry packed into 24 minutes of TV. It's perhaps some of the most overt and stimulating commentary. As far as television efforts are concerned, the art form had attempted in decades at that point. Possibly one of the better examples of it in tokusatsu ever. And
True.
It ends on a bittersweet note that does not provide a lot of clear answers to these age-old questions. A few years after the episode aired, in an interview with tokusatsu commentator Risaku Kiridoshi, Kawasaki shared some of his intent with the episode, alluding to the contentious 1999 NATO bombing of Yugoslavia. He questioned the logic and morality of might makes right, and it being the solution to everything. What was this bombing? NATO, led by the United States, in what some alleged was a violation of international law, conducted a months-long bombing campaign on Yugoslavia in response to the purported ethnic cleansing of the Albanian population that had been occurring there. Though, in the years since, some have alleged the situation was exaggerated or NATO had ulterior motives for their intervention. Kawasaki seemed to be among those critical of the bombing, saying, "If you maintain that might is right, you'd be like the America of today. If I don't like you, bombs away type logic there. But, if you think about it, against something like NATO forces, even small European countries wouldn't be willing to surrender. That's how the world is. You can't suppress things by force." And, relating it back to Ultraman, Kawasaki said, "In a world like this, to expect one hero to show up, beat some giant monster, and have everyone live happily ever after, that's pretty much just a lie. Fantasy. That is what I wanted to expose and critique with episode 28. I made it so that everyone had a legitimate point. That's why things were as messy and confused as they were." The hefty themes and ambiguous conclusion of episode 28 inspired comparisons to Hayao Miyazaki's Princess Mononoke, a 1997 Studio Ghibli anime film, which also dealt with the conflict between the development of civilization and preservation of nature. In addition to concluding on an open-ended note, it's an interesting comparison seeing how the Tiga episode predates the Studio Ghibli film by about 4 months, and was spoken of in the same breath as acclaimed cinema. Also worth noting is that, according to Kawasaki and Ultraman Tiga producer Masato Oya, episode 28 sparked controversy. Why? Detractors believe its subject matter to have been out of place, too grim for the Ultra series. But drama stirred behind the scenes as well. Some members of the staff considered the episode too heavy for the middle of the show, arguing that it felt more like a finale, and tried to talk Kawasaki out of it. Yet again, Kawasaki held his course, and it wouldn't be the last time he tackled heavy subject matter either. His last 2 episodes continue with comparable intrigue. While he didn't write it himself, Kawasaki's penultimate outing for Tiga was tailor-made for him. Written by Shinsuke Onishi, a university colleague Kawasaki brought into the industry to pen the episode, episode 38, The Mirage Monster, depicts militarism taken to the extreme, featuring a rogue TPC official who on paper has a stellar record, aka someone we're supposed to be able to trust, abusing his authority and manipulating the masses with false reporting in order to gather data on how civilians react to monsters in a controlled environment. Captain Irma is put into a morally compromising position, and the episode demonstrates how easily rot can corrupt a larger force. Eventually, the episode gets into territory most famously covered by Ultraman 80, suggesting monsters can be born of negative human emotions. And with that, we reach Kawasaki's last episode, episode 39, Dear Mr. Ultraman. The idea was conceived early in the show's run by Keiichi Hasegawa, and was something intended for Shingo Matsubara to direct. But, due to Matsubara's busy schedule, and believing that the episode would look silly after the evil Tiga saga, Hasegawa turned to his old university rival, Kawasaki, and it's hard to imagine anyone else having done the job as well. The episode revolves around the disgruntled psychic, Kirino Makio, whose experience with superhuman abilities has been far less positive than the admiration he feels Daigo has enjoyed as Ultraman. Kirino was discriminated against in his youth, treated as a monster because of his supernatural abilities. Disgusted with the love and attention that Ultraman has been showered with, he blackmails Daigo into playing a game with him, a game that will end with Kirino revealing Daigo's identity to the world, if Daigo loses, potentially condemning Daigo to the same fate Kirino suffered as a child. However, Kirino does not realize Daigo's experience hasn't been perfect either. He does not understand the weight, or loneliness, of Daigo's burden. But, once witnessing Daigo's selflessness, and positive nature in the face of borderline hopeless adversity, Kirino has a change of heart. He regains his faith in humanity, refuses to let his unfortunate past continue to define his future, and helps Daigo take down the monster of the week. Kawazaki's last 3 episodes are all examinations of heroism, who these heroes are, what makes them heroes, and what is the cost of their heroics. It's something that sometimes makes the heroes of these shows look less heroic in the process, but it's a fascinating subject that captures the realism Kawasaki sought. One could even argue it's something that traces back at least as far as episode 16, as the Kawasaki-directed episode was the first of the show to really get into Daigo's loneliness and the personal consequences of the life he leads. But in a glimpse of the competing creative ideologies behind the scenes, it is positive a few episodes later, in episode 20, that Daigo is not alone in his struggles. A sharp contrast to the possibilities raised in episode 16, where it is suggested that solitude and heroism are inseparable bedfellows.
つわものは常に孤独だと。孤独。つわものは勝ち続けなければならない。そのために孤独になると。
耐えられるかな?
But what are ideas without execution? And Kawasaki proves himself quite capable in this regard from the start. Not only is episode 5 one of Tiga's first great episodes, Kawasaki manages this despite the massive shoes to fill. What he didn't know at first was that this episode was based on the Jisoji-directed episode 34 of the original Ultraman series. The episode is a hilarious simulation-like affair that includes memorable moments, like Captain Muramatsu putting his uniform on backwards, and Hayata mistaking a spoon for his transformation device. Another excellent example of Kawasaki's comedic chops is episode 16, The Revived Demon. When a group of thieves vandalize an ancient mountain monument, they accidentally unleash a vengeful demon, eager to wreak havoc upon the world once again. As a result, the ancient warrior responsible for sealing away the demon in the first place, now working through the body of one of the thieves who reawakened it, joins forces with Daigo to stop the demon before it's too late. The Revived Demon is a fantastic episode that traffics heavily in traditional Japanese imagery, has Kawasaki's most blatant emulation of Jisoji-style visuals ever, boasts a monochrome filter that shrouds the mountain as the demon regains strength, features a lot of creative shifting back and forth between the actor playing the thief and the spirit possessing his character, and is full of what is easily Kawasaki's best turns at comedy at that point. Examples of that comedy include the visual gags in Guts HQ, such as the amusing interactions happening between Yazumi and Shinjo, and the last instance of what had been a recurring gag present in the last 3 of Kawasaki's episodes, Daigo suffering from an injured left arm or hand.
That was a good bit, I will admit.
While Kawasaki was already pretty hands-on from the start, it wasn't long before he branched out into other duties, assuming even greater control over the episodes he directed, likely stemming from creative differences with Chiaki Konaga during their second collaboration, that being episode 6. Kawasaki was paired with other writers. It's probably also safe to say Kawasaki was not pleased with the special effects in episode 6 either, because 1, it has some of the least convincing moments in the entire show, something the same effects director would repeat in later episodes, and 2, Kawasaki opted to take matters into his own hands from that point forward. Why does that matter? Well, drama, the scenes involving humans, and special effects, the scenes with men in rubber suits stomping on miniatures, were traditionally handled by 2 separate units for much of tokusatsu history. Each unit had its own director, and that director had their own team. While there are exceptions here and there, this was a common practice dating back to even many of the early Godzilla films, where the drama scenes were normally directed by Ishiro Honda, and the special effects scenes were directed by Eiji Tsuburaya. But back to Ultraman Tiga. Kawasaki's first steps into special effects direction were supported by effects veteran Koichi Takano. Takano was the primary special effects director for many of the classic Ultra shows, and Ultraman 80 was his swan song in that capacity. However, the old man was called upon to inaugurate a new era of Ultraman by directing the special effects for Tiga's first 2 episodes, and he later co-directed when needed, like assisting Kawasaki with episodes 15 and 16. Presumably, Kawasaki didn't need help for long, as he took a big step with his next outing, episode 27, directing both the drama and special effects on his own. While that has become commonplace nowadays, there were only a handful of examples of that at the time. But Kawasaki was only getting started, as he really made history with his next episode, episode 28, which marked the first time an Ultra Series director was officially and completely responsible for writing, directing, and special effects direction. Writing was usually its own thing in tokusatsu. It was rare that a director had even as much as a co-writing credit. So, Kawasaki juggling all three roles was a very unique achievement, and is still somewhat unique to this day. Furthermore, episode 28 is where Kawasaki starts truly submitting his own style of direction. It's here where it really becomes possible to see that Kawasaki favors top-down camera angles, often where the camera is placed at the roof, looking down on all Guts members having a meeting. And he also sprinkles in moments of handheld, documentary-like filmmaking. This episode is also where Kawasaki starts to better sell the illusion that pilots are actually in the Guts wings, beyond the usual cockpit shots. Typically, a scene involving a ride mecha will go from outside of the vehicle and then into the cockpit, or vice versa. However, unless memory fails me, starting with episode 28, Kawasaki started offering more dynamic moments where we see the pilots inside their aircraft, from the outside, and more of the surrounding environment than usual, taking advantage of the technological advances since the earlier days of the Ultra series. Though, if we're to include films, Ultraman Zerth beat Kawasaki to the punch with something similar, several months earlier. But, whether or not he was the first in the overall series to do it, Kawasaki employs the practice extensively once he starts. His examples are among the most visually complex of it at this point in the overall series, and it catches the eye because there wasn't a lot of this elsewhere in Ultraman Tiga. Another example of something Kawasaki enjoyed doing, but not present in episode 28, is having an enemy shoot Ultraman Tiga in the face at point-blank range and sending him flying back.
I do remember that. It's really good to emphasize the destruction and all that. It's a good excuse for it.
Finally, while there's not much of it in this episode either, in virtually all of his other episodes, Kawasaki likes to show characters eating or drinking, and he was the first Ultraman Tiga director to do it. Once you see it, it's hard to ignore. But anyway, back to elements in episode 28.
Yeah, that's coming along pretty
does have is
good.
thoughtful visual storytelling, and that's something done perhaps most notably with its emphasis on tanks. A deliberate move meant to make the action as relatable as possible, to sell the idea that this is something that could happen close to home. There's shots of tanks rolling through a suburban setting, later crushing flowers as they rush away in retreat. And, after a humbling defeat, there are shots of burned out tanks, almost certainly filled with the remains of personnel who couldn't escape in time, in addition to stressing the ugliness of war without a word being said, and reminding viewers that giant monster rampages, and wars in general, are not victimless affairs. It provides an answer to Yazumi's question from earlier in the episode.
Oi, Yazumi.
The triumphant military march music leading into battle has been replaced by something far less exhilarating, much like the reality Yazumi is faced with. On the note of music, one final point to mention about episode 28 is the use of Take Me Higher during the climax. Take Me Higher is the opening song of the show, and, usually in various instrumental forms, had already been used several times during the final battles of earlier episodes. That includes Kawasaki's use of it back in episode 6, but, displeased with said use, Kawasaki gave it a second shot, and its use here won him a lot of praise. Before turning into Ultraman to confront the monster on the loose, Daigo is already questioning his purpose for fighting, a continuation of questions from earlier in the episode. And, in the midst of battle, those questions linger. But, once deciding he fights for his friends, those he loves, the music swells and erupts into intense guitaring as Tiga wipes out the monster with a burst of crimson energy from his body. As epic as it might seem at first glance, it is also laden with a sense of sadness, as if Tiga and Guts have possibly made a mistake, and the music gradually fades as the scene switches to the revelation that critters are leaving Earth. Openings to shows have been used during fights a million times before in the Ultra series.
It is a bit of a tokusatsu staple, one might say. Though is not always used wisely or well. Some examples of this would be in Kamen Rider Ghost, and especially in Kamen Rider Saber. They which were both directed by the same dude. They just abused the shit out of it. Let me think. Revice also had a bit of an issue with it.
But what episode 28 did was something really special. Anyway, this brings us to episode 38, an episode which seems to draw inspiration from the editing of Ultra 7 episode 34, The Vanishing City, as can be seen in the repeated drum beat transition throughout both episodes. Drumming is also used for the moment when tension peaks, and Captain Iruma can no longer bear to maintain the line she was ordered to keep, as she watches her team and the city descend into chaos.
Let me think. I like what we've done so far. I think I will finish up the tube detail. And that'll be it for the night. I'm starting to pass the fuck out.
Next, in addition to an effective use of Vivaldi's The Four Seasons, Kawasaki finds a rather captivating way to capture a meeting between Iruma and her superior. The most compelling of the camera work and editing is towards the end of the scene, where it bounces back and forth between trucking shots and close-ups. For the trucking shots, or the parts with the horizontal movement, the camera gets further away with each cut back, while the close-ups of Captain Iruma has the camera closer towards her face each time it returns to her. But that's plenty said about that episode. Let's get to Kawasaki's last episode, episode 39, where his directing won him comparisons to cinematic contemporaries like Shunji Iwai, an acclaimed Japanese director who was at the time best known for 1995's Love Letter, and Wong Kar-wai, a beloved Hong Kong director who was at the time best known for 1994's Chungking Express. Whether or not such comparisons were warranted is one thing. Still, it's interesting that such discussions came up, and Kawasaki does a lot of interesting things here. For something that might grab the attention of Ultra Series fans, there are select elements that feel reminiscent of Return of Ultraman, episode 33, The Monster Tamer and the Boy. The two episodes already have a few curious points in common. For one, as established earlier, Kirino was bullied as a child because of his psychic abilities. The same is true for Ryo, the titular boy of the aforementioned Return of Ultraman episode, who was bullied in part because people believe he has psychic abilities. Next, the sometimes rainy, sometimes somber aesthetic of scenes involving Kirino's past and loneliness recalls the moodier visuals of the famous Return of Ultraman episode. But if that wasn't enough, both characters can be seen visiting a bread shop in their respective episodes. For other highlights from Ultraman Tiga's 39th episode, there's the final battle, which includes inspired storytelling like the cross-cutting between Ultraman getting beaten and the memories of Kirino getting bullied as a child. It takes a while for it to move him, silently watching with the fight reflected in his glasses. But watching Ultraman suffer reminds Kirino of how he felt getting bullied as a child. And despite his initial belief that Ultraman's suffering would make things right, it makes him feel guilty and inspires his change of heart. Other examples of creative direction are the meetings between Daigo and Kirino. The first has an interesting use of low frame rates and blur effects for the passing crowd while keeping Daigo and Kirino at a normal speed and vision, which distinguishes them as superhuman individuals in a sea of ordinary people.
I made a mistake.
The second conversation, set at an empty horse race track, takes things even further. The combination of camera angles and editing and the experimentation with space conveys the tension between the two superhuman opponents. The most eccentric visuals are reserved for Kirino, who comes across as erratic and threatening, almost popping across the screen at will. One final thing I'd like to note is something minor, yet interesting nonetheless, and that is Kawasaki's fascination with the rotating table in Guts HQ. He wasn't the first to use it. It was put to use as far back as the first episode, though there is more basic than anything. Kawasaki first used it in episode 15, allowing each member to make a comment or gesture as they went in and out of frame. He used it again in episode 27 to humorous effect. But its use in episode 39 is the most interesting of the bunch. As Kirino monologues, something only Daigo can hear, and it's him thinking back on the email Kirino sent. The entire team moves across frame, and the camera zooms in, until only a conflicted Daigo and Reina, the only one to notice Daigo's conflict, are left in frame. Like I said, it's something minor, yet it represents Kawasaki's tendency to experiment and push himself.
Yeah, no, it's definitely well used.
He's satisfied, which is probably a good summary of his efforts on Ultraman Tiga altogether. There's probably even a good argument that his ambition especially his efforts early on, inspire his fellow writers and directors to continually challenge themselves, helping to take Ultraman Tiga to places the Ultra series had never been before. Prior to Ultraman Tiga, the Ultra series had explored serious subjects in indistinguished manners on more than a few occasions. There's the human cost of scientific progress.
Alright, I said I was going to do that last one, I lied.
There's the arms race commentary of episode 26 of Ultra 7. And there's the discrimination allegory in episode 33 of Return of Ultraman. They all come to mind as early shining examples of the thoughtfulness the Ultra series is capable of. But aside from maybe Ultra 7, those are often the exception and not the norm. And in the almost 30 years since Ultra 7's debut, nothing approached its consistency and challenging convention, and leaving viewers thinking, like Ultraman Tiga did, and Kawasaki was one of the key figures in making that happen. It's at least something people seem to have noticed at the time, seeing how Kawasaki received special attention from both viewers at home and those involved with the show. An example of the latter is a comment by Akitoshi Otaki, who played Manakata. During an interview a few years after the show, Otaki said, "Kyoto Kawasaki is really good. From Second Contact to A Fleeting Dream, in Ultraman Dyna, his episodes just kept getting better and better. I saw episode 28 and figured that it was about the extent of his talents. But watching episodes 38 and 39 made me think he was really good. It made me wonder where his peak actually would be, where he'd go from here. If we had a production company that allowed someone like him to make more and more films, we'd have some seriously great works to enjoy. I'm sure that if we can make more of a setting from which young directors like him can excel, Japanese cinema would evolve in greater ways." Of course, Kawasaki alone didn't make Ultraman Tiga special. There were a number of other talented writers, directors, and personnel attached to the series. And of course, there were excellent episodes without Kawasaki's involvement. Episodes like 17, The Battle Between Red and Blue, Episode 25, The Devil's Judgment, as well as Episode 43, The Land Shark, and Episode 44, Inheritance of Shadow, aka the two-parter known as the Evil Tiga Saga. It was the combined efforts of the men and women behind the scenes who sought to prove the value of the art form that helped make Ultraman Tiga the most popular Ultra Series show of the past few decades, and the first TV tokusatsu to win a Seiyu Award, an annual Japanese award that has celebrated the best in science fiction media since 1970. Furthermore, Ultraman Tiga was the third overall Japanese giant monster media to win the award, following in the footsteps of the first two 90s Gamera films, and it remains among the handful to have achieved such honor. In short, Ultraman Tiga was a big hit, its success properly reviving the Ultra series for a new generation and helped jumpstart an exciting new era of tokusatsu, the fourth tokusatsu, which would soon see other major events like a proper revival of Kamen Rider, which again is a story for another day. But it's not all great news, as besides minor roles here and there, like directing 2 episodes of Ultraman Dyna in 1998 and 2 episodes of Bioplanet Wu in 2006, Kyoto Kawasaki essentially disappeared after Ultraman Tiga. There's plenty of smoke to speculate what might have happened, but that's not important. What matters is the rich legacy he left in his short, yet important time within the tokusatsu industry, and that legacy could use more attention. First and foremost, a special thanks to my patrons, Austin Trench, Nick Lenz, Eric Gonzalez, Puppy Buds, Brandon DeReal, Monkey Pant, Michael Stevens, and a huge thanks to Zealous Fervor. You guys mean a lot. I couldn't do this without you.
What the?
And for everyone, what do you think of Ultraman Tiga? What is your favorite episode directed by Kawasaki? Or what's your favorite Ultraman Tiga episode in general? Which Ultra-related subject should be covered next? Be sure to share your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, if you want to see more videos like this, please consider giving this video a thumbs up and subbing to the channel. That's all for now, but I hope to see you next time. So until then, take care.
Yeah! That's damn gorgeous.
Harnessing the power of the sun is what the race for nuclear fusion is all about. It's a race to create limitless energy, and brilliant minds the world over, from USA to France, Japan, and dozens of other countries, are attempting to achieve stable fusion.
Honestly, we're looking for our Tesseract. Sustained fusion would provide nearly unlimited power and lead to industrial innovation on levels that we've never seen before. I mean, imagine doping a country's water supply with just a little bit of Adderall. So much would get done. That's the effect that unlimited power would have on innovation.
Being passionate about astronomy pretty much my entire life, and having dabbled a bit with high voltages, I wanted to make my own star in a jar.
Something to always bring me back to an innovative center.
After several weeks of drilling, sanding, soldering, tweaking, and gluing, plus several setbacks,
come on!
I finally see why these Farnsworth fusers are kind of a big deal.
Now, if you haven't seen the news lately, nuclear fusion is kind of back on the menu. From the Joint European Torus recently doubling its own energy record, to the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory improving their energy yield by 800%, to the Max Planck Institute fixing plasma instabilities, we're overcoming the wall of hurdles this power source throws at us. But it's amazing that we're trending towards sustained fusion at least, you know, basically controlling the power of a star. And after you've watched me try to build a star in a jar, I highly recommend you head on over to brilliant.org to learn how fusion takes place in our own sun. Let's take a look. Their astrophysics section is on point and involves physics basics, astronomical measuring techniques, star life cycle and nuclear fusion, as well as interstellar travel and exoplanets. The energy production in STARS course gets right to the point and covers why atomic nuclei sometimes need a bit of a push in order to fuse, and how that spells power output. It's full of interactive animations and graphics, and it asks thought-provoking multiple-choice questions. If you get a question wrong, it breaks down the correct answer for you, so that you walk away learning a thing or two. Brilliant's honestly an incredible way to learn physics and science interactively, and topics range from mechanics and electronics to quantum objects, gravitational physics, and even advanced calculus. They legit have thousands of lessons with exclusive new content added monthly. Personally, I've been using it to kind of brush up on my understanding of fusion, and ultimately it's kind of helped with the science that you're about to see. You can get started for free by visiting brilliant.org/plasma channel or click on the link in the description down below. The first 200 of you will get 20% off an annual premium subscription. So, in the middle of the groovy 1960s, one of the inventors of digital television had a bright idea for producing sustained nuclear fusion. He called that idea the Farnsworth fuser. Now, how fusion works in the first place is actually pretty remarkable and can be achieved in a couple of different ways. You can use intense lasers with a heated inertial confinement, such as LLNL's setup, or a ring of plasma with magnetic confinement, as with ITER's setup, but they both have the same goal: to fuse individual deuterium and tritium atoms into one larger mass of helium. And when they fuse, a small percentage of mass is actually lost in the process.
It's like this disgusting tomatoes.
So where does it go? Well, it's converted into pure energy. You know, the whole E=mc² thing the dude with the pipe talked about. Now, there is another way to achieve fusion, and it's called inertial electrostatic confinement. This is our fuser. Whereas fusion normally requires immense pressure and pretty much the power of a sun, this method requires an extremely low vacuum and tens of thousands of juicy volts as the driving force. The latter of those two is definitely a bit more within my capabilities, so I got to work gathering supplies for a star in a jar. Now, I've never worked with vacuums before, so pretty much everything about this project was new to me.
Okay.
Let alone the fact that I was trying to build a nuclear fuser, right? Regardless, I did have a couple of characteristics I wanted this build to have. You see, this summer I spent some time in Egypt and I found an appreciation for the geometric shapes within the pyramids.
I might actually keep
so I wanted a triangle base
this
and a
part like that
chamber.
and just
All-seeing
emphasize
I also wanted a compact, minimalistic design and for it to be plug and play with minimal setup, no loose wires. As I was about to begin the build process, I learned that one of my patrons had professional fusion experience and wanted to help. Meet Chris. He worked at Idaho Accelerator Center and the Stanford Linear Accelerator, so we sat down for a chat. So since you made one back, a few years ago, do you have any recommendations for making a fuser that's going to be successful or isn't going to kill me?
So successful and not killing you, I think kind of fall in two different categories here. Keeping kind of short distances between things with shutoff valves is actually really helpful. The biggest reason why you need that vacuum is because you need a free mean path for your ion. Will collide with enough energy to actually fuse. Sometimes you can flush your environment
with
a inert gas or your hydrogen, for example. Things that are dangerous around the fusars are the vacuum. You can implode things, and the other thing is of course the high voltage, which you're well aware of.
Yeah.
X-ray production is a thing here, especially since you're freeing up these ions, and these ions are now having a chance to travel. The electrons are traveling. Neutrons are another one that's dangerous.
So especially since I'm going to be above 40 or 50 kilovolts in particular, So higher risk. Okay.
Above that 40 mark usually is dealing in the X-ray area. A good 5-6 feet away is where I would stand.
We talked a bit more about using vacuum grease, avoiding the use of silicone seals, and making sure my wire grid had parallel surfaces. I learned a lot from that conversation, and as you'll see coming up, it actually influenced my build. So that combined with the fact that I now had supplies in hand, ooh, nuclear physics was imminent.
Okay. Boom. And then we come in and do one of these. Control C. Control V. Control A. Okay. And then we do this.
Okay, putting it all together, the physical part of the build is complete. You can see I used juicy nuclear green, and it's pretty minimalistic in design. And once I add gaskets, this will be all set up for
Boom.
vacuum. So onto the power source next.
Do this.
I plan to run my fuser at more than 50 kilovolts DC, and to provide that kind of voltage, I'll need to use a voltage multiplier fed by an external high voltage source.
Come and do
That
this.
is what this space is for, so that I can build a voltage multiplier right into the base, making it more compact.
I'm on the wrong line.
So after a few hours of curing, look at this sexy meatloaf. You gotta love what epoxy does. It protects high voltage components, but it also looks nice, right? And the multiplier fits
Boom.
perfectly in the base.
That's
After adding some
it.
connections, this little nuclear bundle of joy should be good to go.
But I need to do.
And here it is with all connections in place.
There we go.
Okay, the way I see it, there's 3 separate tests to run. First,
Okay,
does the multiplier
cool.
produce high enough voltage? Second, can I pull
I'm liking
a
how
strong
that
enough
looks. I'm
vacuum?
liking how
And
that looks a
third,
lot.
does
Might add some more
even light up
details
in the
here and
first place like
there,
it's supposed
but
to?
I will say
on to the
that that
multiplier.
is
My
good
flyback supply provided 8 kilovolts
for
AC, which I just fed
tonight.
directly into the multiplier.
That was a solid, yeah,
Let's see what
3
you got.
hours. Wow.
You sound angry.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to go ahead and
Yeah.
turn that off. Thank you all for coming to the stream. I appreciate it immensely. Hopefully, I will have some more time in the coming week. It's kind of looking like I might not. Just going off of what I know I have scheduled. Tuesday and Thursday are both booked for me. So I will I might stream Tuesday, depending on how things work out. I might be able to work something in. Might be a similar situation to actually no, guaranteed it won't be a similar situation to tonight. So what I might do is stream Monday and Thursday. We'll see. I'll at least stream on Thursday, I think. But I'm guaranteed not going to be able to stream on Wednesday again. So I might need to just shift my days and have Thursday be my guaranteed. Oh man, have Thursday be my guaranteed stream day because it's looking like that's going to kind of work out a little bit better at this point. I'll think about it and figure that out. In the meantime, thank you all for coming once again. I appreciate it immensely. We got a lot of work done. Let me make sure I saved. Yeah, I did. Okay, cool. Let us find on the Twitch side of things someone to raid, because I don't know if you can do raids on YouTube. I don't know how that stuff works. So we're just going to raid on Twitch. We're going to go to... Who should we go to? You know what? I've been talking with these people for a while, and I have not raided them even once yet. I have a feeling that would be a good idea. So let me... Oh my god. We gotta... Oh, they got a whole other thing. I see. Let's go here. I think... Let me make sure that all of my stuff is set up. We're not going to do a raid message. It's pretty late. Just go in, say hello. Be friendly, be nice, all that good stuff. I hope you had fun. Let me get through these commercials. But we're going to raid into... How much time on the ads do I got? Okay, that's not too bad. We're going to raid into Marin Mermaid. So that'll be... Never mind. They're raiding into someone else. Shoot. All right. That was bad timing. Glad I checked. In that case... Screw it. Oh, I see what they're doing. No, I don't think I'm going to do that. It would be funny, but... I think I'll pass. We're going to do, we're gonna do this person. We're gonna do Cali Calico because they're having a day. They're having a fun little deal. Once again, let me boot this up so that I can make sure that the ads are avoided because I don't want to sit in the ads while they're talking to me because that's always awkward. I hate that they do that too. Like you raid into someone and they like you just have to sit there in like 3 minutes of ads and there's nothing you can do about it. All right, let's see. It's having a weirdly hard time loading in. Okay, we are good. I am hitting the raid. There we go. All right. Cool. Thank you for coming. Thank you. I'll see y'all on the next one. Bye.